energy is one of those things that kind of shouldn't be divisive. It shouldn't be Republican or Democrat. It shouldn't be whatever. It's things that every citizen should be able to unite around. I created the podcast Unite the Divided because I don't like talking Republican, Democrat stuff. I like talking about topics and then getting to the center of where everyone can agree on things.
Absolutely.
And you're going to disagree on certain aspects, on the nuances and all that. But at the end of the day, we have to all come together on the biggest issues to solve the biggest issues. And when it comes to energy, first and foremost, I don't think it should be a Republican Democrat thing, because it's not one of those things that should change from administration to administration or this party to that party. That's why we are where we are. Because certain people have certain initiatives and directives, and they listen to ideology from this side or whatever, and they're like, citizens aren't really talking about things at any level, right? We're not brought into the conversation. We don't have input. We don't really understand what's going on. We just trust whoever got elected by whoever put in the voted for the, and it changes. And so energy to me is, again, I just don't believe it should be a political football.
It shouldn't be. Unfortunately, whenever you monetize any issue, it instantly becomes a lightning rod. In this particular crisis, which I call it a crisis, we have a municipal energy.
Are we live, by the way?
Okay. Crisis, and that's not just. And I say energy because we're getting big CenterPoint bills, but our water utility is also outrageously high.
It's horrific.
It's outrageously high. So
for water that I refuse to drink.
Right.
This is
right.
bottled water that I have brought in a glass bottle.
We have a utility crisis in Southern Indiana, and we're doing very little to address it. The concept that we would assign it to a political party is offensive to me. Strip away, for the purposes of the conversation, I would really appreciate just stripping away political affiliation. We can all understand that Indiana is run by a Republican state legislature and a Republican governor. Evansville is run by a Democratic mayor. Third largest city in the state, Democratic mayor, fine. Assumptions made, strip away the parties. So let's look at the issue, just like we would do in business. In a business, regardless of what's going on, we strip away the personalities and we look at just the problem. And the problem with this is we have a massive carry forward debt that has been a result of federal energy mandates, clean energy mandates around getting rid of coal. We're still paying on that when they put the scrubbers in, the power plants here. We're now paying for the new green initiative agenda that came out. We're now putting solar panels up all over the place. For power, we're not even consuming. That doesn't belong to us. It's going out and being sold on the grid. We have a energy monopoly, a company in the form of CenterPoint that resides in Southern Indiana, and we have no competitive interest. It's not a capitalistic market. We can't get a competitor in because the transmission lines are solely for the use of CenterPoint. That's a legislatively governed decision. We need to change that. It doesn't matter who's in the office to change it. We need to change it. So when I want accountability from our leadership, the people that were voted into office to represent us, my biggest issue is when they don't. I don't like half measures. I don't like symbolic gestures. I don't like less than truly substantive actions. And it's not very complicated. In Texas, in Houston, CenterPoint exists. That's where they're headquartered. And the mayor of Houston formed an action coalition of all the local governments all around Houston, took it to the governor, got legislative action put in place, and they got a $50 million rate decrease. This is not a...
Are they a monopoly in Texas, or do they have multiple points of...
That's a great question. We can source that.
Well, that's something.
5 seconds.
Well, but we could AI that pretty quick.
In reality, they had a $50 million decrease per year. That was the same year we got a $50 million, what was projected to be $50 million, turned out to be an $80 million increase in Indiana. That's not good. That's not good.
I mean, one of the things that, I don't know what I am politically. I don't know how I align. It changes on every topic. But the thing that bothers me, everyone knows a monopoly is bad. I mean,
Absolutely.
even the people that you're on the left or the right, people on either side will say, no one company should control all information, should control all power, should control all food. I mean, you have to have competition. Otherwise, it's definitely not capitalism. And you're definitely always going to see increasing prices over time. And so, trying to prepare for this podcast, and I'll say, and I think I said it before we got on camera, I've spent more time prepping for this one than I have in any. And I might fall on my face on how I perform. But what I will say is, I've been making posts like you. We both got ourselves in a little bit of heat here in the last 6 months, 2 years.
Oh, I don't mind it.
Complaining about. I love it. I wouldn't do anything else. But at the end of the day, I hear people complaining about Republicans in Indiana and how they're messing things up and why we are where we are. It's because of Republicans, and it's hard to argue at a certain level because Republicans have been in power in the state of Indiana, from governor to mostly, I think leadership-wise, we are mostly Republican. We're a red state. We voted for Trump. I think we voted for Obama maybe the first time, maybe not the second time. So, I mean, we're kind of, we can be middle of the road, kind of like Ohio, but we're not as important in electoral college. But at the end of the day, my friends up north, my friends all around the state are like, we don't have nearly the energy problems price wise that you are. So they're like up to 75% cheaper in a lot, maybe even more in a lot of instances of how much they're paying. So for me, sitting here not wanting to be, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat and having that pissing match, I want to know why we got isolated. And if we're just trying to bring in competition, because competition will drive down pricing, how do we break that monopoly as fast as possible? And I know it's like, well, there's a law and there's this or that. We're to the point now, there families struggling to eat, families struggling to put food on their table, to power their homes because a company in Texas just decided to raise the rates, and all the administrative bodies that are supposed to be protecting us aren't. I don't care who's on those boards. I don't care their affiliation. I just know they're sucking at their job, and it's killing people around us. Not necessarily literally yet, but
maybe.
And we are in August. It's the biggest energy cost that we've had ever, not including the water that's terrible. And what happens in wintertime when prices really, really go up? I mean, we are moments away from true crisis.
That is my biggest fear with what we've seen with the energy rate increase. This was designed to be deployed at one of the softest times in the market. Summertime, you're not using natural gas. You're not really burning a ton of kilowatts because you're outside. This came at an interesting moment when we had one of the hottest months in a while, but it should never have been this. We should not have seen $1,000 power bills. It's shocking. It was shocking for a lot of people.
Regardless of the letter behind your name, or
the letter behind your name. Everybody. I've never seen
even wealthy people are complaining. I mean,
100%. I've never seen an issue that is this uniting across party lines. Not ever. So my involvement in this, people ask, well, where were you during the Winnick administration? Where were you? Admittedly, I wasn't paying attention. I was traveling. I was doing, the nature of my job was to travel on behalf of energy companies, doing business development. So I really wasn't focused on that here. But I came back to Evansville during COVID and started getting involved in the community, started really plugging in, started getting to know my neighbors. I moved inside city limits. I live over on Alvord Boulevard. And what really upset me and it really moved me to get involved in this issue, and it was heartbreaking. I don't know if you remember in February when we had the big ice storm. I was driving my wife to work. She has a car that's not good in the ice. And so I was driving her to work over on the east side. I passed one of the city parks, and people that I'd spoken to during my city council campaign who voted for me. They were actually Democrats. This older couple, wonderful people, had a wonderful set
just for whoever doesn't know, voted for you how and when and what?
Apologies.
We haven't even said who you are, so let's
So
Joe, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Travis is here as he always is.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Chad. Thank you for all you all joining. I try to come back to right where you are, and you're a
Yep.
very, very smart guy, so you'll come right back. Just tell everybody a little bit about who you are. We've talked for a while. We had lunch at Cork and Cleaver. Shout out to our local awesome restaurant.
They're fantastic.
Tell everybody who you are, kind of what puts you in a position to know what you know about energy, and why. You don't even have to say how we met and how we started talking, but energy brought us back together. This topic
Absolutely.
has brought us back together. So intro yourself a little bit if you don't mind.
Sure. So I've been involved in the energy space, commodity space, for well over a decade. I've been involved in business development, in particular, in that space for quite some time. I've worked as a consultant in the energy distribution space. I was the chief strategic officer for the largest privately held propane company in the state of Ohio, where we sold directly to municipalities in the state of Ohio. It was a boots on the ground education. You learned a lot about how states work, how municipalities work, how utilities work. So, as I mentioned, I came back to Indiana, slowed down the consulting work, and really just wanted to plant my roots here. I currently am the chief executive officer at Keller Williams Capital Realty. We spend a lot of time talking about Evansville at work. We talk about the value of Evansville. We talk about the value of real estate. We talk about how Evansville is not growing. It's actually contracting. And that's not a good thing either. We're not attracting new people to Evansville. They're leaving. In fact, roughly 64% of every high-paying job in the Evansville metropolitan area isn't in Evansville. They live outside of the city limits because it's too expensive.
Not so long ago, I would say I live in Evansville partially because it's a good place to raise a family.
Right.
Secondly, it's the cost of living.
Cost of living's great.
Cost of living's great. I can't say that anymore.
No, you can't.
That is not a selling point we have.
No, it is not. And
Keep
it's
going,
not
I'm
a selling point when people try and relocate here. We deal with relocations all the time, and we do not talk about utility rates here. We don't talk about cost of living here. When they ask us about it, we just don't. It's just not a talking point.
Look at this door.
It's not a selling point. Yeah,
This
look,
door is really nice. The view is fantastic.
yeah, it's wonderful. It's just one of those things that's kind of heartbreaking. So that's a little bit about who and what I am. I wound up really bolting in and getting involved when I ran for city council, Evansville City Council in the 3rd Ward. I did a lot of walking, a lot of talking, a lot of knocking on neighbors' doors.
3rd Ward, where is that for everybody that doesn't really know where 3rd Ward is?
So it's from 41 to Greenriver Road, all the way up to Wesselman Park, and all the way down to Washington Avenue.
Okay.
It's a great big
Center City.
Center City. Yeah. There's a lot of businesses that are in that area.
Okay.
In a really wonderful residential area,
Sure.
right in the U of E area.
Yep.
So I have a hospital, two hospitals, one state hospital, and then of course St. Vincent's is right there as well. So had a lot of diverse conversations, a lot of really interesting concerns that these people brought to me. And so in the course of that, I met a lot of wonderful people, which takes me back to my story and the ice storm. I was going by one of the city parks, and I saw these two elderly people in their little car sitting there grabbing sticks and breaking them up out of the road and all these things because all the limbs had come down. And they're very involved in their park life. They're very involved in walking. And so I was concerned that they were trying to clear this road and I was going to help them. So I pulled in behind them and started talking to them and said, "Hey, what's going on? Do you need me to help you clear this off really quick so you can walk?" And they said, "No, we're just picking up some sticks." And I pressed them a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on. I didn't understand it. They said, we're using this for a fireplace. I said, "Is your power out?" Because a lot of people, if you remember, a lot of people's power's out. I was going to take my generator over their house and get their furnace going. They said, no. We're just really, really worried about our energy bill, and we've got medicine to buy this month, and we can't do both. And so they spent their entire afternoon picking up sticks in a city park to heat their house. That was heartbreaking to me because our elderly citizens could not afford, in a really great part of town, could not afford to power their house, to heat their house. They didn't feel comfortable. They had that level of insecurity. In the same vein, the IURC had a set of hearings here, where the public was able to come in and talk about and petition them to not raise the rates.
Okay, so can't not raising the rates. Tell people, the laymen, who IURC is and how that's relevant.
Sure.
Because we're all talking about all this stuff all the time. I've had to do research to figure out who IURC is and why it's important to the conversation. Some people listening to this for the first time might not know that. So let's back up one step and then come right back to where you were, if you don't mind.
Nope, no problem. So there's a governing body that manages all rate increases for the state of Indiana in the utility space. It is the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. So they had hearings down here when CenterPoint proposed a rate increase. They petitioned for a rate increase. They had hearings down here where the public came in, and I sat there and I listened to people weeping at the pulpit, telling them, I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. My power bill is more than my rent or my mortgage. And it was these people spanned everyone from new home buyers who were so proud to have their first time home and realizing that they might not be able to keep it because they couldn't manage the power bill and the mortgage and the water bill. That's insane to me. That's insane to me.
Just to be fair, just to tap in here, because I've done my research, to my knowledge, IURC members are Republican. They're appointed by the Republican governor.
Yep.
Senator Braun, Governor Braun is currently our governor, and he has not appointed a single person yet.
Not yet.
All people were put on there by Republican, but no one that I know of is from a local kind of the region here. So nobody's representing. Has a CenterPoint bill that's coming into their mailbox every month, or auto pay, or whatever it is that they're doing. So we truly have no local someone able to raise the red flag and say something's going on here that's not right.
That is correct.
Okay.
And the hope that we would have, and I think it's misaligned. I think the expectation is unrealistic. The way the legislature that governs what the IURC can and cannot do is written. We want them to be a consumer advocate. We want them to protect us and to advance our interests. And that's not at all what is happening.
How do you do that with a monopoly?
Well, you rewrite the laws that control the IURC that allow us to have more of a voice and more of power over what is and is not allowed. So
now we're getting somewhere.
We were talking about the carry forward debt from these investments or requirements that were made to our energy grid here.
I don't think we were online at that point.
Oh, we were not? Okay.
Yeah.
So
were we? Travis, you don't remember that. Go ahead.
Perfect. We can rewind back.
So we got to figure out why our bills. Let's rewind just a little bit. Figure out. Not so long ago, I remember the bills were not too bad.
We're not like this.
Right. It used to be move to Evansville, cost of living's great. We didn't want to live in Seattle, where my wife is from. Living in North Carolina, their utilities were much cheaper, but we paid a lot more for other things.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So a couple things. One, during the Obama era, there was a legitimate war on coal. The coal was deemed too dirty to burn, and they wanted to clean up the coal-fired energy production plants. So they put all these restrictions in place, and you had to go through and retrofit the plants and the stacks with scrubbers and all of this different technology. And there was a massive push to go to natural gas, which is admittedly a much cleaner burning fuel. So in that process, large pieces of debt were incurred, and that debt is serviced by us, the consumer. In the IURC has guaranteed a certain rate of return to CenterPoint or the energy utility that owns those power plants. So if they invest X dollars, on top of that, they're guaranteeing the state is guaranteeing that municipal utility. They're guaranteeing them a certain rate of return back, which is not how capitalism works. Actually, capitalism is supposed to bring in competitive interests that help control costs for consumers, driving the best product, the best service at the lowest market rate possible. That's how capitalism is supposed to operate. We have one provider here that has a complete stranglehold on us. And it's provided, that stranglehold is guaranteed by the laws that the IURC operates under.
Well, hold your point right there. And what I'll say is one of the debates I got into real quick with a local advocate who's a great guy. We podcasted together. We agree probably on 70% of things. We disagree on some things. He's a very Democrat guy, and I respect that. I don't have any problem with any Democrats. Married to one for a very long time. You can't be hard on them whenever you're married to them. But the moral of the story was, did a lot of research, and going back to Obama, he talked about the cap and trade policy, which he was trying to pass, which quote unquote didn't pass. But his plan, and he was quoted in these. I have a clip, but I'm not going to bring it because it doesn't matter. You can do your own research. He said, under our cap and trade plan, energy prices will necessarily skyrocket. So the plan for that would be to get rid of the fossil fuel, coal, dirty energy. The whole system was built atop of a narrative that global warming is going to destroy the planet. We're going to have all these different things going on, and so we have to completely change what we're doing. Under that same time, we weren't talking about nuclear or anything. It was just all solar and wind, and that was really the only thing that was talked about. And so his cap and trade policy didn't go through, but all the wheels were turning in every city across the country.
Everything's still going.
And that filtered down to Evansville at some point. And you can do your own research on this. I have clips. I have things that I could show. Our mayor here in Evansville has a very Green New Deal energy policy on the book.
Yes.
We want to get rid of everything that's coal, whatever. And look, I say this, and I'm gonna turn it right back over to you. But
no, please.
I say this because I'm very for. I've probably given more money to the environment than most people. I'm a lifelong hunter.
Conservationist.
Conservationist.
Yep.
I spend money on land. I spend money on trees. I want a beautiful environment. What we have committed ourselves to does not create that.
No,
It's actually the polar opposite. With wind farms, with solar, it is completely opposite of conservation, and there is no evidence that the green energy plan would make our lives better. It's not cleaner, it's not cheaper, it's not safer, and there is no sustainability really to it.
The carbon footprint to make the green technology is actually significantly bigger than just using fossil fuel.
Right.
It's astonishing. Actually.
So we've bought into a plan.
And that's not to say I don't like the tech. I think there are steps necessary to get us to a sustainable
I want to get away from
technology.
fossil fuel.
Right. 100%.
I don't. So
100%.
the goal would be some kind of a plan that we are on it for a window of time, and we're moving towards the end goal of sustainability, clean, cheap, the cheapest energy that we can get that's safe.
100%.
Right? That's what we all want.
100%. To your earlier point, we were economically. It's called economic steering. They created, and we just went.
Sounds really technical, Joe.
It is. So
where are we going? Wherever I'm steering you with
wherever
with the
I'm
money.
steering you with how much you're having to pay. So
exactly
the best way. So we talked about this. I think while we weren't recording. I'm a part-time police officer.
Yep.
The best
Thank you for your
way-
service, by the way.
Oh, thank you. The best way to lead somebody is to put your hands on them and guide them. And if they resist you, it will hurt a little bit. When you put someone in handcuffs, if they resist you, it hurts a little bit.
You can do a little tweak, and they change
just the nature of how they're restrained. Right. It can cause, if they don't comply, it can be hurtful.
Yep.
So, and we try to mitigate that in the ways we can. But it's the same way with economic steering. They don't want you to have economic freedom in how you buy your energy or how you source your energy. They want you to do what they want you to do. And because they haven't fully embraced an authoritarian policy here, saying you will do this or else, they'll say you will do this or you'll pay an exorbitantly high price. We just went through that with the domestic energy policy here. We stunted our own energy production and we watched our fuel rates skyrocket. That's not a positive thing. We did that with the sole purpose of trying to push everyone into an EV infrastructure. It failed miserably because the country can't operate in that way. And in no small part because as Americans, we don't like our freedom of choice taken away. We do not appreciate that. In fact, it's in our nature to rebel against a loss of freedoms. And I celebrate that. I think that's wonderful. You spoke earlier about the climate action plan that our city government currently has been endorsing and has in place and are working towards. I went and looked at that climate action plan, and currently in that action plan, there are 50 actions. It ranges from EV fleet upgrades to composting programs to Soul Smart certifications, tree planting, which I agree. I planted a whole bunch on my property as well.
Everyone should.
Yeah, I totally agree. And green job initiatives. what's shocking and pretty irritating and should be irritating to everyone is that out of these 50 initiatives, not one is designed to address our utility crisis. Not one lowers rates. Not one challenges CenterPoint's monopoly.
Or fiscal crisis.
Our fiscal. That's a
we
whole.
haven't even
touched on that. But if you want to go down that path, we can.
Well, not right. Let's stick on energy. To anyone that doesn't know, Evansville has a real fiscal crisis. Part of it is our current administration has raised our spending by a lot, and there's no way we're not paying for that debt.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can come back to that if we want.
But we can circle back.
And if you don't believe us, do your own research.
Well,
it's out.
I
It's
want
out
us to
there.
circle back. So I want to talk about the wheel tax, like he was talking.
Oh
about.
yeah.
we
We got
go to
that.
wheel
We got
tax,
that on
yeah.
thing. Yeah,
That'll be fun.
Keep going where you're going there.
So when you're in a room, a large room, listening to people crying about the loss of their potential first-time home, which is the cornerstone to legacy wealth building. This is how a family builds wealth to hand down generationally. If you take that opportunity away from them because the utility costs are so high they can't afford both, when they bought the house, they could afford it. Fast forward 3 to 5 years, they can't afford it anymore. That's not a fair proposition for people that we want to keep inside the city limits of Evansville, Indiana. That's not fair. That does not work.
Sounds like theft.
It's taxation.
Yeah.
It
Well, I mean, a lot of the same reason why the farmers, we grew up, this is a farming region.
Yeah.
And a lot of farmers lost their land due to taxation.
100%.
And to all kinds of different things. So,
It should be, people should be abhorrent. I listen to veterans talking about how they're on a fixed income and they're struggling to figure out how they're going to pay for their medicine and how they're going to pay for their utility bills. It was shocking.
this is where I land more conservative because our founding fathers, call them what you want, and you can debate the good things and the bad. I mean, taxation without representation was at the top of all of it. And
Absolutely.
we had a huge fight in Boston because we didn't want to pay taxes on tea.
Right.
And now we're paying upwards, close to 50%,
It's just because it's
close,
nasty.
Yeah.
No.
Close to 50%.
Yeah.
But then, our particular crisis and where we're different from other areas around the country right now, even though like I think Trump maybe is stemming the tide from the green stuff, but I mean our energy prices now are far above the national average.
Oh, they're outrageous.
And it's there's no end in sight. Like it'd be one thing like if our mayor and if our local, they blame the governor, but like the governor and everyone north of us doesn't have the same energy costs that we
They
do.
don't.
So it's like out of sight, out of mind. So we have to go kicking and screaming, which is, I guess that's our duty, but it's not fair because the person that's supposed to be representing us locally
That's exactly it.
is the person that needs to be kicking and screaming every single day.
That's exactly
Every single day.
Exactly the root of the problem. And for me, that's what. And recently, I've had some, particularly one Facebook post that I put out in response to these high energy bills. I met with in February. So going back just a little bit, in February after the IURC meeting, after those rate hikes were approved, as I was very confident they would, they spent about 8 minutes in a televised IURC meeting, which you can actually watch. The commissioners walked up, said approved, done. And we just got hit with $80 million increase a year. Painful.
Just in our region.
In our region, just our region. It was not shocking, but it was very painful and disappointing. So people ask all the time, when did this rate hike? When was this rate hike? When was this rate hike planned? So it's really interesting when you go back and look. It was December of. Let's see. Let me look. Let me just make sure I've got my information correct, because it is really annoying when you go back and look. And this is all publicly accessible information. December 5th of 2023, CenterPoint Energy files for a massive $118.8 million annual review increase with the Indiana State Regulatory Commission, the IURC. January 1st, 2024, Stephanie Terry is sworn in as mayor of Evansville at noon at Bosse High School. That gave her 13 months to form a plan, which if I were running for office and I won that elected office, I would have already had a plan in place There was not one. I was on the campaign trail with her. She was on the opposing side. I heard we went to many community meetings. I'm sure, just like I did, I'm sure she spoke with citizens. And the number one thing I heard every single time is, what can you do about Centerpoint? And in reality, a lot of people are right when they say she can't directly affect Centerpoint rates.
I think we can agree with that.
That's 100% true.
For sure.
But you know what she can do? She can advocate consistently
Be a
every
thorn in their
single
side.
week for us, the people who got her elected, the people who elected her. That's her obligation.
And the people that didn't elect her.
And the people who didn't elect her. She's our mayor.
That's right.
And that's just a fact. She's our mayor. And if she were doing that, I'd be the first one standing up saying, let me help you. What do you need?
We can unite around this.
100. This is not a partisan issue, nor should it ever be. And I will be the first one to castigate a person trying to make this a political or partisan issue. The only reason it's political, and I mean this sincerely, is because it resides entirely in the purview of the politicians. We as private citizens cannot change it. Yeah. We require our representatives, our elected officials, to make changes on our behalf. Therefore, it is a political issue. But if it was the Democrats that controlled the state and a Republican mayor, I'd be just as mad at that Republican mayor.
Well, it's a political football, and what I like as a independent person that can criticize both sides. Mm-hmm. There's a reason I'm not invited to the Republican Party parties, Joe. And so, like for me, I'm critical of everyone, and generally, I think Republicans right now are doing a better job on a lot of things. So I probably identify more as a Republican. I voted for anyone that's watched the podcast multiple times. I will say that I voted mostly Republican in the last couple elections because the other side didn't offer anything that I thought was beneficial. And all the way to the national side, the energy, the green thing, the energy was huge. Mm-hmm. Looking forward about
it's the domino effect that affects every single thing in our lives.
It's not political.
No,
it's policy. Mm-hmm. It comes down to money. It comes down to policy. Mm-hmm. And when I say money at the local level, I'm talking about individuals who have to fork out that money every month to pay for their lights to come on or pay for food to go into their mouths. And with inflation, with energy, with all the things that are affecting every citizen of the city, of the county, not as much as the state, quite as much as us,
sure,
because we're paying more. Mm-hmm. So again, we feel isolated. We don't feel like we're being represented, and we're not.
We're not.
And so at the end of the day, the people that haven't watched this podcast before, I tried to have a conversation prior to the last mayoral election with the three primary candidates that were left over. And there was an independent, maybe libertarian, I don't know what he called himself, Daugherty. Mm-hmm. There was a Republican candidate, and there was current Mayor Terry. And both of the other candidates agreed to talk to me. They knew what my podcast was about. It was mostly national stuff, but there was definitely stuff that I knew would trickle down. And I don't really get into the weeds with a lot of local politics. I'm friends with people on both sides. Mm-hmm. We go to the same party.
I'm friends with people on both sides. Some of the best people I know.
A lot of my wife's friends are Democrats.
Yeah.
And we disagree on a lot of things, but we have great conversations. And we agree to disagree, which is kind of the way things should be.
That's the way it should be.
Exactly
Good
right.
Policy
it used to be that way.
Strong debate.
It's the way it should be again. It has to be that way.
100% right.
Travis hasn't said anything. Way to chime in there, Travis.
That's okay.
I like it. No, but a healthy, respectful debate is the heart of how good things happen. And the reason that you are, I suspect, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the reason you're voting predominantly Republican right now is because we have a very centrist, common sense leader heading the Republican Party that says we need energy to be affordable. Because it's the bedrock of how we move things across the country. It's the bedrock of how we turn our lights on. It is largely the foundational currency by which we transact business.
Well, just to be frank, what the policy we're living under is not Trump's policy.
No.
The mindset of everything that's trickled down into all of our cities right now, Evansville at the top, is going back to Obama's cap and trade. It trickled into the Green New Deal, whatever that ended up. All this stuff has trickled down over time. And again, it's turned into, it's not even political because again, it has rolled through a Trump administration. It has rolled through the Biden administration, and it's still
the same.
Nothing really changed. Which
nothing.
Tells you it's not political. It's about money, and it's about influence, and it's about the money and the power that's making these things happen, which is where you and I come to the table in agreement, no matter what we agree or disagree.
100%.
We probably agree on a lot more things that we disagree on, but this thing, everyone should be able to agree on.
I have yet to find somebody on either side of the political spectrum, no matter how far right or how far left they may be, that
Well,
doesn't
I
agree
hear people on the
this
left,
issue.
though, that are too into politics saying, well, it's a Republican's fault. And what we hear now, and again, just tying it back in, our climate is burning and our country and our globe is going to melt because of global warming.
Like how far it's
Our mindset still in our policy and why we agree to write big checks to energy companies is based on the fact that most people think we don't have enough fossil fuel to run the planet, which is a complete lie. And fossil fuel is destroying the world, which we could have a debate on a nuanced debate.
There's a lot.
China is
yes.
going all in. India is all in. No one around the planet
China's firing up coal plants every single.
nuclear, coal, everything that they can do to create more energy, they're doing.
And because they're powering things like AI. They're powering
They're trying.
things like manufacturing.
AI is the thing that we probably also need to have a conversation.
Yeah,
about.
we can touch on
It's
that.
going to come into the city realm, which no one in the city is really having a conversation about it, and it's the most pressing thing to me, aside from energy and costs that we
I
aren't
totally
talking
agree.
about that we need to have a talk.
I think once we realize that across the aisle we have an issue, and what's really wonderful is you can love or you can hate this guy, but Governor Braun is probably the most accessible governor that we've ever had, certainly ever that I've known. So he comes down, he's very open to discussion. Any event that he's here, I try and get in front of him so that we can have this conversation.
He can see your face and
He
know
can see
you
my
next
face.
time. Yep.
Yep, exactly right. And he's a fair individual. He's 6 months in. He's trying to get his appointment set up. He has not appointed anyone to IOR.
And he's from Jasper, Indiana, just in case anyone
is.
that's listening doesn't know that.
don't hold
am-
that against him.
Yeah, right. I am
Very conservative Germans up there.
That's it. I am not in defense of a particular leader in this situation because, again, I see this as a bipartisan
It is
issue.
100% bipartisan.
We just need action, and there are action steps. I spoke with last Friday. I spoke with one of the our state representatives here. This rep has a phenomenal idea. I can't really talk about it at the moment, but
Yeah.
it would immediately have.
You're doing
a
clickbait right now.
significant-
Now I got to have them
Episode
on. I
2,
gotta have you
yeah,
on
yeah.
Something I don't know what that.
Yeah, it's episode 2. But if this individual gets this done, and I can't wait to be able to talk about it, it would have an immediate and dramatic effect without changing anything about the monopoly, even though everyone accepts that we need to make changes. This is just an immediate
Relief.
action plan, an
Yeah.
immediate relief that could happen, which would be wonderful. I have worked very diligently on a plan that I'm looking forward to presenting at some point very soon to state legislators, to
Is it the same plan you shared with me?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so let me button up where I was and then come right back to you.
Yep.
So I tried to have a conversation with Mayor Terry prior to her election regarding concerns and questions and just things generally that I wanted to hold her and or the other people that she was running against accountable to. That we could say, we're sitting here.
Here's the scorecard.
Here's the scorecard.
Yes.
Tell me, I have 20 questions of all the levels of tyranny that I feel like I'm looking at nationally that could trickle down. Energy is one of them. Just tell me where you are because I'm going to grade you over time and I'm going to hold you accountable.
Very
it's
fair.
going to
Very
be it's going to be transparent. It's going to be accountable. You and I are going to agree on 80% of things. I'm probably going to say I don't really agree with you on that. Let's talk about it again in 6 months and see who's better off. That's the conversation.
That's how good conversation happens. That's how things occur. That's how progress.
So I got eliminated from a surrogate told me that she didn't even want to talk to me.
That's disappointing.
That's disappointing, but it was also telling. The second thing is I was critical about the water, but you brought up the water. I was critical about the water department several months ago. And actually a local official had a series of Facebook posts taken down that I was critical of the Evansville Water Department and the mayor's office because
Wow.
it trickles back to the mayor's office. So I'm going to come back to you on whether you think that's if any local official should be able to censor anyone online. I would have a real problem with you or anyone else that agrees
Absolutely.
that that's the thing. But it was telling in a sense because of people that don't really want to hear outside input and to build teams that work on things that are not political, that are trying to like solve bigger problems, will not talk to someone because they're a Republican or Democrat, and so that's a real problem. And I'm coming right back to you with your story, because you created a plan with all the stuff that's going on, and we haven't talked about that. I don't know if you've talked about that online on a podcast or not, but I wanted to circle back around to you because you kind of dealt with the same thing at a different level. You were actually brought in, got to have a conversation. Just kind of tell me what led up to what you came up with, what you took to the mayor's office, and then what happened and why we're here.
Right.
Because I think that's probably why we're here. Because you didn't get, because we were getting ready to talk, and then I got silent treatment from Joe a little bit. I'm like, he's working on something. And I saw your Facebook post, so you're trying to work on something.
Right.
So I'm cool. And then you got
right.
So let's do it.
A couple things. I want to speak to your early talking point. Whenever, and this is brilliant branding. It's absolutely brilliant branding. We have Apple iPhones because we like being Apple people. Well, that was for a while. Now the technology is great and it just works with everything. But initially, the technology was not great, but we just liked being Apple people. Mm-hmm. It's a brand. So they've converted the...
we all politically align on that.
Right. Probably,
these three people. These three.
Yeah. We all have MacBooks.
All MacBooks, all Apple everything.
Yeah. Okay. Apple Watches.
Yeah, absolutely.
Judge away, people.
Yeah. You droid people, judge away. My issue is when you take a branding and turn it into a religion. It removes any opportunity for opposition and critical thinking. That is my biggest problem with that. And that's what takes us right into someone taking down a post because they don't like what it said. It just illustrates that people are concerned about what might be said about a particular thing when a post is taken down. If you can't defend a thing, then it shouldn't be a thing to begin with. If you're afraid to have a conversation in a group setting about a government policy or a government entity or any particular given situation, unless it's an active police or legal proceeding or investigation going on, I understand all.
If you're making threats to people,
right.
If you're
yelling
calling for negative action on someone,
right? That has no place.
No way. That's
no
not free
violence,
speech. Yeah. That's not what this was.
But the second that you are critically thinking and you're asking probing questions and you're trying to get explanations on outcomes, and it's removed, that is unacceptable. That is 100% unacceptable. It should be called out every time.
There was no follow up. There was no one said, oh, well, we took that down because of whatever. But it didn't come down by itself. Mm-hmm. And I actually, our good friend who's podcast with us has insider knowledge that they actually have a person that has a button they can push.
That's unfortunate. That's so unfortunate.
That should just go away.
It should.
That should not be a 100%. Thing.
100%. And I find that's, frankly, I find that offensive. But
I find it a little more than offensive.
Yeah, it's unacceptable and it's offensive. I think when you have a religion, and that's what a lot of people do. So in organized religion, you have the concepts of heaven and hell.
Yeah.
Heaven being great, hell being the consequence of whatever it is rule you're breaking, right? So they've created that same narrative, that same positive and negative outcome with climate. I'm a top-down energy guy. I've got solar.
Climate is religion. Climate
is.
Yep.
So I've got top-down energy policies going on at my own home. I have solar on my house. I have high efficiency units. The first thing I did when we bought this old house is we put high efficiency units in everything so we could impact it as little as possible. I planted tons of trees all over the property because I believe in shade. I like producing oxygen. I like giving back to the environment.
Not around your solar panels, you can't.
No, you can't. But at the end of the day, because I'm a petroleum guy, because I'm an energy guy, there are people that will never, ever agree with me on anything, just simply because I'm that. I had people shut their doors in my face the second they heard that I was running on a Republican ticket when I was campaigning. They didn't ask me who I was. They didn't ask me what I stood for. They didn't ask me anything. The second that they saw a Republican or heard, they would literally answer, "Are you Republican or Democrat?" Slam.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. That's the tribalistic nature of a religion, and it's designed to do only one thing.
Yep.
It's designed to divide so that they can control.
Yep.
To be fair, that happens on both sides.
It does.
I think a two-party system is
That's
kind of
very
a
valuable.
bad. Yeah.
It's a very valuable insight because it does, and I don't agree with that either. When you have two very wide extremes, that 10% on the other side, that's the only noise that you hear. You're not hearing the common sense in the middle people that just want good laws, good representation, a high degree of public safety, and basic core functions in the city to operate correctly. That's the problem. And I don't like when we have that level of separation.
Extremism.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. There's no call for that. That's not how anything gets. That's exactly how people make a lot of money, because they put people in one camp or the other, and it's exactly how they keep people so distracted from what's actually going on that nothing can actually get accomplished on behalf of that center swath of people. And it's sad. People fall into it. They have that fear porn around the globe's going to melt down, or the globe's going to get too cold, or whatever is going on the right. They have that fear porn. They're going to take all our guns. They're going to do whatever it is they're going to do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Whatever that lever is they're pulling, just assume it's like going to Vegas and they're pulling that slot machine and they're just getting money after money after money after money. And it's
most of the time,
pathetic.
I don't know how long have we been on live so far? It feels like it's been 5 minutes. I'm sure it's been long.
Oh, today?
Yeah,
45 minutes.
Okay, so you might not have ever watched the podcast, Joe, but typically what I do is share clips about things that people are saying on the national level that relate and
Sure.
come back to the local level. And the reason why I've done this is because I feel like our local media, I like a lot of those people. I have friends that are impacted by the NPR thing. We can have a whole nother conversation about that another day. But I don't feel like they're asking the right questions. I don't feel like they're uniting people around the energy that's happening around the world with all things. And I don't want to cut you off I want you to finish whatever point you're on. So
Sure.
keep a note. I've got a couple minute clip that I was going to do in the first 3 minutes of sitting on the podcast, but this is a very interesting conversation. I could probably not share any clips, but I feel like this is a relevant thing that, Jimmy Dore is a comedian. He's a very well-known liberal Democrat. And I find myself, and if you haven't ever watched the podcast, a lot of the people that I share clips of, I would say probably 80-20 are liberal, former liberal people, or liberal people who have just been outcast by their own party because of the ideology, because of the religion, because of whatever. And I think this clip kind of summarizes. It's only like a 2-minute clip, a little 2.5-minute clip, and I think it kind of just pinpoints what you and I have been talking about, what me and Travis and our other guests have been talking about. But let's just hear it real quick, and then I want you to come back. I don't know. It doesn't look like my sound's on, Trav.
Unplug it, plug it back in. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why.
Houston, we have a problem.
You break it. Yeah.
That sounds like every IT response.
Yeah.
Turn it off, turn it back on.
Restart it.
Here we go. Okay, so I don't know what's happening here. So you want me to
How
plug?
did you break it?
I didn't, because I haven't touched it enough.
We tested it and it worked. Now it doesn't work. What did you do?
I'm gonna unplug it and plug it back in. Let's do that. I can hit it with a hammer. That might do the thing.
No.
The next thing.
Regardless if it's Apple or Microsoft.
Don't do that.
I don't think that's gonna work.
Violence and technology, it's not great. It's not a good mix.
No, it's not. Are we have audio now?
They were afraid of him doing it, and nobody else has ever done this in my lifetime. And he's doing it, and people can't bring themselves to applaud it or amplify it because they've been brainwashed with hatred for anything RFK Jr. does. All politicians are hugely flawed. It doesn't matter who's doing something good. If somebody's doing something good, you should join. It's just like when we had the anti-war rally and the Code Pink ladies wouldn't come because they didn't agree with the LGBTQ stance of some of the anti-war speakers. It's like, yeah, this isn't an LGBTQ rally. This is everybody coming together to stop a war, and that's what gives it power when people who disagree on a lot of other things can agree on this. And
what was the stance? Some trans bullshit, I bet.
It was that they didn't like. It was Jackson Hinkle and some other stuff. They didn't, and that's
let the war keep going on then until we get that sorted out.
And
they're both comedians, by the way. So
Revolutionary Blackout Network. They were saying some gay guys. They were saying no. That's you have to engage those people. You show up. You engage the people who have anti-LGBTQ views, and you let them know you as a person, and that's how you change their views. You don't change their views by never talking to them. Anyway, so this is a long way of saying that if you have a show and you can't get behind this, there's something wrong with you. You've been propagandized and you've been brainwashed. And shame on you for not amplifying this and for cheering it on more. So we're trying to get big pharma money. That used to always be a left position. We want to get big pharma money out of our government, out of our captured regulatory agencies. That used to be a lefty position, and they completely flipped during COVID. Just
It was
like
Colbert's position, if I recall correctly.
that was Stephen Colbert's position when Trump was president, and then as soon as Biden became president, he completely flipped. That used to be everybody's position.
Yeah.
Until
He's an
COVID.
intentional bad guy for that.
Yeah.
That's not like he's just like so like dumb, like a view gal. That's like he's an on purpose piece of garbage.
Yeah. And then you saw my former piece of garbage friends attack me publicly for being skeptical of Big Pharma like they are supposed to be. And of course they're not, because they're dumb and they're Hollywood knuckleheads. They're empty heads. They don't know anything. And also many of them are jealous that my show took off and theirs didn't.
There's a lot of jealousies.
A lot of jealousies. Anyway, so good on RFK Jr. over at HHS.
Okay, I only shared that just because RFK comes from a very well-known Democratic family. Many of Trump's appointees are left-leaning, and
we're on the left.
Yeah. So if RFK would have been accepted into the Democratic Party, he probably would have been the nominee. Very likely would have won the presidency. But because of partisanship and because of people drawing lines down these topical things, you have to pick a team. So the fact that someone didn't want to talk to you because you're a petroleum guy, what if you were a Democrat and you're a petroleum? Why do you have to be a Republican because you worked in a certain segment? Just because you
I would have loved to have had the opportunity to ask that question.
Because if you made a petroleum deal and your end goal was to go green and nuclear at some point, but Joe, because you're a smart guy, that it takes different plans over many years to get to the end goal of we got to use what we have until we create the new technology and the clean and the cheaper and all the things that we need. I think the biggest thing that all people rally around is, well, because it's a Republican thing and it's nuclear, it must benefit them. And so therefore we can't let them do that because it's just them controlling more and it's dangerous and it's all these different things. And I'm not trying to roll into nuclear yet, but it's this ideology, religion thing that gets people so divided that they won't come to the table to talk about energy because you're a Republican. I don't care.
Not at all.
I don't care. I don't think I like too many socialists. I don't really want to hang out with them.
Not a fan.
But if you had a solution for energy, I would sit down with you all day long and talk about it.
Let's see let's test
all day
the theory.
long.
Let's see if it works. Let's figure out what works for the most amount of people.
Yeah.
This is the second that people start questioning and leveraging critical thinking skills to question the system, even our monopoly that we are experiencing with Centerpoint. A monopoly, the very nature of a monopoly is that it protects itself. It does everything it can to protect itself. And
Republicans created that in the state of Indiana.
If they didn't create it intentionally, they certainly enabled it.
They've stacked in.
They certainly did.
Okay,
yes.
so
they're preserving it.
Let's just call that out.
Yeah, it's been preserved over
You're a
spans of
You're
time.
a Republican.
Yes. Yep.
I lean more Republican especially on this issue, but we're going to put the blame in the right court.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's own that. Let's own that.
They have the legislative power to change it, and that's what's important. I am not interested. And this is something that irritates a lot of people, I think.
You're probably not going to get checks because of...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I didn't take
It's a real thing.
In my campaign, I didn't take any money from Centerpoint. But I will tell you what I learned about Centerpoint. And you can go out to the CFAs that are filed at the clerk's office, and you can find out every single person that was giving campaign donations out to every single candidate, including our mayor, including our governor, if you wanted to, and including our state reps and whomever else you would be interested in looking at. It's well documented. I do know that if you are a political leader and you've taken money from the very monopoly you're trying to reform, it's going to be a challenge.
It's conflict.
It's conflict.
Yeah.
At the best, it's conflict.
It's the reason why our media doesn't ever ask the important questions because they're getting paid
Not to.
by the center points. They're getting paid by pharma. They're getting paid by all the local things.
Yeah.
They can't ask the hard questions. They can't demand the answers.
One of the things
because
that
they'll pull that budget from them real quick.
One of the things that makes me infuriated is when I hear people say, well, Centerpoint gives all this money to not-for-profits. They do give all this money to the community. That is the lowest acceptable bar for a corporate citizen. That's the lowest threshold that I find acceptable. If you are a corporate citizen in a community, it is your obligation to give back to that community because you're in reality giving back to the very people that work in your corporation and your business and benefit from it. Not only that, but if you ever hope to attract and then retain that talent, you have to have given back to the community. That is the basic core function of a corporate citizen. So I'm tired of that argument. It's a really weak one to begin with, and it's very unsatisfactory when it comes to justifying rate increases. It's nonsense. And I also want to immediately follow it up with the people that work at Centerpoint, the people who climb our poles and fix our lines. This is not their problem.
Oh, no.
There's no local person.
Every time our power goes out, I root those people on.
Oh,
man.
I'm so thankful for them. I'm thankful for every single one of them. And you know
this
what?
is not about them.
They pay the same power bills we do. They're not happy about this at all. I promise you.
I bet you they can't talk about it though.
They may not be. They may not be able to, and it's probably best for their job.
There's some censorship.
Yeah. So highly encouraged. Don't talk about it.
Encouraged or else.
But after that, after the rate increases, and after what I saw in that city park with that lovely couple, I was compelled to get involved in this argument. I have a lot of experience in this space. I wasn't really applying myself to developing solutions. I actually relied on the leadership that we elected to do it. It quickly has become apparent that leadership, even though they are probably meaning as well as they can mean, they're probably great people. I just don't know that there's a capability to develop these plans. So, and I don't think it's
certainly not a desire.
Not a desire. I put together a 5-point plan after I was invited to the mayor's office to speak with her staff and her, and laid out. It's a very simple plan. I'll just go through the top 5 bullet points. 1, create a local utility oversight task force. Demand Southern Indiana representation on the IURC, which is, again, the governing body which controls rate increases for us in the utility space. Push for state-level consumer protection reforms, which I strongly believe that the mission of the IURC should be to protect the consumers and represent us. We can't represent us unless they have a representation from the communities in which they're supposed to represent. So petition for a temporary rate cap immediately. Stop all rate increases.
Because there's more on the horizon.
Oh,
right?
there will be more on the horizon.
Well, there's no talk of anything changing.
No.
No, what I'm saying wasn't this rate increase though to be steps over time? Like,
we just had our first one.
It was a big step.
Yeah. So, and then the 5th step is launch the public mobilization platform. That's town halls, petitions, reporting tools, and sadly, over the course. So this happened to again. She had 13 months before the rate increase was even voted on. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened.
And you took this plan to her when? Sorry, Travis.
In
February this year, and it's now August.
And
okay.
I was pleased to see in a video response to some of these increases.
Thanks for getting me put into that hornet's nest, by the way.
You're welcome. If I've got something stirred up, I'm going to send it
500 and something shares.
Yeah,
and it was several hundred comments later.
Yeah, 500 and something comments later. There was a lot of engagement because it showed, and that shows you just exactly how passionate people are and how desperate people are for a solution. So I wanted to leverage my skill set and leverage some of my experience. So I took that plan and heard nothing. I actually said, if you need me, because one of the weaknesses of the plan from them was we're a Democratic administration here. The Republicans, we don't think the Republicans can work with us. I said, I'm a Republican. They will work with you. I will be your liaison. I volunteer to be that person that calls them into accountability, calls them into conversations, and starts to develop solutions.
I'm more of a Republican than I am a Democrat, and I will root for you if you are actually working to solve this problem.
So
I don't care who you are.
Right. And that's what, you know what?
And I've got a lot of comments from people in groups that have formed that 100%. I don't think I align on a lot of stuff with them, but we can align on this one.
It's bipartisan. This is just
Travis had
energy.
something. He hadn't got to talk yet.
Well, no,
so
all
listen.
I was going to say is what blows my mind is that I saw your post, your more recent one, not necessarily the one back then, your more recent post with your 5-point plan, and not one of those 5 points can I see any iota of a reason to push back. But you had so much pushback.
It was incredible.
It was crazy.
No,
how
he's
many
a
people-
Republican.
That's
Well, I
the
guess
pushback.
I mean
That's
I guess that was the pushback. That but I just it blew my mind.
He probably voted for Trump.
Yeah, there's a highlight.
I don't know
Trump
if he did.
derangement
He
syndrome in
didn't
the
tell.
house.
He didn't tell me that
Yeah.
he did.
Well, what's astonishing is it goes right back to what we were talking about. This is a religion. So if you in any way critically think or criticize what is going on in the agenda that a Democrat is pushing, you have these people that emotionally respond in a very profound way. They're very passionate about it. And I respect that. I respect people's involvement. I want their involvement. I think that good debate is how good things happen. I think respectful debate is the only way that I will converse with anyone. I don't respond to personal attacks. I will not issue a personal attack. I will criticize policies, and I will debate strongly on behalf of the people of the community. Which
Here's
I
where
live.
I'll push back on you just a little bit. You said it's a Democrat issue. I believe it's a uniparty issue.
It is.
I think energy is one of those that it's the bigger thing that everyone has their feet and toes in, and they play games and act like they're all against each other. The reason why we have these green things at the local level all across the country is because they all really agree on it, and they're just play fighting to me. That all I see is at some level. I'm not saying Governor Braun comes in and he doesn't have an opposing thing. I'm saying nationally, where all the money funnels down through the EPA and through all these different NGOs and
we
stuff.
can go into some
I know
deep rabbit holes
I don't
here.
want to really go there,
And so-
except for I'm trying to bring Democrats and Republicans
right.
together,
This
and
is
I'm
the
coming at
unifying
it.
issue.
I'm coming at it as I see the skepticism from people, and,
Yes.
and you see the money trail, and you see the actions that have happened, and where Travis would normally come in and say, yeah, but you've been in power for a long time, and you're a Republican.
That's very
why,
fair.
Why, and how is this going to be different? What do we need to do now?
This goes right back to the lack of advocacy. We spoke about at the top. No one's up there screaming about getting a change. No one has done this. And we can go back in time. We can talk about the previous administration. They didn't do it. Our current administration is not doing it. That onus is on two sides of the same coin, and that's a problem.
But we're here now.
We're here now.
It
I
doesn't
don't-
really solve anything.
I don't care at all about the history of how we're here. This issue won't change regardless of what your position on the history is. The position and the situation can only change with action. And that action should represent everyone that's here. It doesn't matter. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue. And that's what we're having to try and break through. Your comment about my post was I had the same revelation. I couldn't believe that.
And a lot of people were trying to blame the past.
Right,
Like
right,
that was
right,
the only thing they could bring up. Yeah.
Because it's a deflection. It's
Right.
an easy way to say this is why my candidate, my team isn't doing anything. And it could have been a Republican. It was a Republican in office before her. They didn't do anything either. I would be if I was this plugged in and this much of a concerned citizen at that time, which I should have been, and I wasn't, but if I had been, I would have done the exact same thing that I did with our current administration. And what is disappointing is, she put out a video response to the public outcry, which was positive. It was another polished PR statement that relayed her dismay and her sadness over the IORC decision.
She's our cheerleader.
She's our cheerleader. She wants us to succeed, but she's doing nothing to enable it as the leader of the third largest city in the state of Indiana. Now, she did cite that she had done some of, or was going to do some of, utilize some of the action items that I had laid out. And people in the comments of my post actually said that. Are you happy now? My response to that is, I gave this to her in February.
13 months ago.
We are literally just now hearing that she's going to start doing
It
this.
took her that long to have somebody write the speech for her?
I don't know about that, but I can tell you what was disappointing is even if she had started running this play by then, I equate it to this. And I do not assume that I'm at this caliber of resource, but if Bobby Knight came to me, gave me the best basketball play that has ever been created, assured that this would make a difference in a game, and I ran that play poorly, it's still just a poor basketball play that got no results. That's where we are. We have no results. And now we're talking about, now we're going to have these citizen action coalitions. Now we're going to work with with Braun. Now I put an IRC candidate that I'd like to see him appoint. No, none of that is okay. This was supposed to be done. This should have been done in February, so that we're now well ahead of the ball before the rate increases actually became effective, to see if there's anything that could be done with our brand new governor that hadn't appointed a single person yet. That was the time for her, and it could still be the time. It's never too late to start action, but that would have made a huge difference if there was a public outcry centralized and platformed by the leader of the third largest city in the southern Indiana region, or in the third largest city in the state, but representing the southern Indiana region. That would have been a huge change, and that's what is the most upsetting. I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat. I'd be just as irate, and that's why I have, since that meeting in February, I have been working consistently to drive this issue forward with state reps, with senators, with congressmen, with not just state senators, but federal senators, our Indiana senators, and with the governor. These people want to figure out how to do it. They want to get involved. They want to hear these concerns. They want to get engaged, but it is a challenge.
Well, can I just say what I think the concerns are? And Travis might think their concerns are. He and I haven't really talked too in depth about this.
No, I do have a question, but you go. And then
No. So the problem with it is the problem. It's the plan.
Yeah.
There is no proof of concept in any of the things that they're saying. When you say the word sustainability, when you say the things less carbon, when you say all these beautiful things, nobody ever talks about how it actually works and how much it actually costs.
The costs are staggering.
There is no proof of concept that proves that we spend all this money, which is we're right in the middle of doing it all, even though it's not official. CenterPoint is going off all the undercurrents of everything that the Democratic-led talking points, whether it's, I think it's more of a uniparty, which we could have a nuanced debate on, but it's the energy lobbyists. It's here's where we're going green. We don't even have, like you said, let's not go. I have a real problem with China giving us solar panels and being beholden to them for the things that are coming through. Let's not even talk about that. There is no proof of concept because it can't be done, because solar cannot generate the amount of power that we need for our current needs. What's the percentage maybe that we're doing nationally? Less than 10%.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So and so it's just not there, but we're killing the golden goose in the petroleum and the coal and the things. We're bad. We're putting black eyes on those guys, so they're not investing in efficiency. And
I would say if you had, and I'm not defending the oil and energy industry in this way, but I can promise you, I know a lot of those guys. I know a lot of the guys that you see on CNN and Fox and all the cable news networks. I know these executives. I've been in the boardrooms with them. I can promise you with 100% certainty, if windmills and solar panels were the next wave of the future that made them money, it'd be everywhere.
Oh yeah, sure.
Across the hundreds of thousands of acres that they have leased to pull oil up out of the ground.
So ugly.
It would be everywhere. And it's not. And the reason it's not is because it's not sustainable.
It doesn't work.
It does not. We saw this in Texas when they had the snowstorm. We see the windmill standing still.
The panhandle.
I just have to ask a question for this right here.
Yeah, do it.
Have you seen Landman?
Oh yes.
Have you seen his entire thing about the windmill? And he's talking to that woman.
We've played that clip.
Oh God, I love that clip. Anyway, sorry, you can continue. But he just talks about how much petroleum or how much gas or diesel
to create one of those massive windmills.
Or the concrete, the amount of everything. Just
it is.
I actually have a clip somewhere.
It is astronomical what it costs to put you. There's no ROI that's provable. That goes to a point that I think that is very, very important that we make. We, as the consumer and the taxpayer in the state of Indiana, are not given a voice to say what investments we are okay with our dollars being spent.
We have no idea what it looks like, Joe. We don't know what the plan is. We can't. There's nothing transparent out there that we can look at, do our own research. For God's sakes, we have access to the most advanced AI on the planet now. I'm spending $300 a month for an advanced AI that's better than anyone can handle, and it's above PhD level in every category.
And
it's smarter than any doctor.
Can't figure it out.
It can't figure out how to make solar efficient.
It can't happen
because it can't happen. So
the penalty to build it's too high.
So
the penalty to stand to implement it.
There's just a screen over the top. So rather than a mayor demanding that we have an action plan for our region because we're disconnected from the state, unfortunately. That's a whole nother thing to tackle. We need to
That's the local representation. When you
destroy
get
the monopoly however we can.
Yep.
I have all kinds of ideas that we can try to do that, but what we are talking about now is immediately. We have to have some. We know that our bills are not going to go down next month. We know that our bills probably are going to be really terrible still at the end of this year.
They're going to be worse. They're going to be worse by the time wintertime comes around.
But if I can look to the spring and say, man, we are working on a plan. Let's all unite behind this. Let's try to make something change. We have a plan that everyone can look at on the wall. Everyone can criticize, critique, bring better ideas. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're living on.
At all.
That's what we're missing. That's what we're always missing. We're just like, you voted for this person. This happened a long time ago. Forget about it. It's the Republicans' fault.
And that's
it's
the problem.
Obama's fault.
That's the problem.
It doesn't. I don't care whose fault it is. It's important to know whose fault it is because you have to understand where the policies came from, where the ideology come from, what the religion is. You have to be able to break that down so you can tear it down and educate people on what the conversations that we really need to have.
So there's a
Sorry, that was a big
soapbox
rant.
No, I think that's very valuable, and it takes me to a basic business concept. Anytime you're looking for a loan from a fiduciary entity, a banking entity, they ask for something as a business. They ask you for something called a sources and uses document. What is the source of the money, and what is the use of the money? And you have to present that. I'm going to get money. I'm going to raise X amount of capital through public capital raise. I'm going to have traditional debt. Then I'm going to have secondary debt, whatever those tiers of debt are. And then you talk about how you're deploying that money very transparently. And if you don't, there are penalties. It's called covenants. We have none of that here. There is no sources and uses documents anywhere to show you what your money, your taxable income that you're providing to the state is buying. Not only that, but if you want to find out what the reason for the agendas are, just trace the money down. Where's the money coming from and where's the money going? If you want to drill down on why people are being forced into these religions, why people are being forced into these divisionist camps, figure out where the money's going. That is an astonishing rabbit hole that we could spend literally weeks on.
But ultimately, that's where it comes down. I mean,
money.
everything always ends with money.
Money and influence, and money buys influence.
So maybe, and you could continue. And I know I'm taking you down rabbit holes, and it's like landmines and whatever. But why do we not have it? Why can we not demand it right now?
I think we can. I think that's part of the solution. I think when we have actual representation, whether it's at the state level or the city level, which I think both are absolutely critical. The national level is above our reach typically.
City level, you have to organize people around creating the noise and
exactly
demanding
right.
the action. You have to do that locally.
This is exactly right.
You can't just say, well, elect a different governor. I mean, that's so dumb. It's so dumb to even say that.
But it's an excuse card. So we've been trained as individuals to go right to the polarizing, to our safety. We run home to mama. Yeah. Boom. It's not our fault. We have to get a new governor.
Yep.
Now, if they had their governor, they'd be like, it's not our fault. We have to get a new mayor.
It's a non sequitur. We can't have more conversation because it's the Republican in the office.
But that's how they and us.
We've been brainwashed to
regardless of political party. We've been given cues, social cues, and critical thinking roadblocks that are thrown up just like that to stop it. Stop us from doing it. It's not your fault. It's not our mayor's fault. It's not our governor's fault. Not whomever's fault. But in reality, they're all legislators. They're all governing leaders. It is all their fault.
In reality, it's kind of our fault.
We have allowed this to get to this place without taking citizen action.
I'm over 50. You're younger than me.
Yeah, I'm 48.
Okay.
Right.
So it's our fault.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
And we're both trying to do better. We're all three here trying to do better for our kids.
This is the reason I'm involved. Yeah. People ask me all the time, where were you during the Winnick administration? Why are you just now talking? I wasn't talking
enough.
Here. I wasn't involved enough, and that's my fault. Now I am.
Well, the prices didn't go up 40% a month.
No, they didn't. I mean,
energy tyranny is like, I've got 12 different things that I talk about topically. Energy is there, and we haven't talked about it a lot. Like, we hear some rumbles on Facebook, and we'll talk about some things. But again, we had that conversation a long time ago, and I think energy was a big part. And I knew you were like the person to go to, like from following the money, from knowing how the system's set up to knowing all the ins and outs. There's no better person structurally. Like, the city should have hired you somehow.
I would have done it for free. I would have done all of this for free.
Okay.
I
Well,
would have just given it here. Just let me.
if I were mayor and you just told me that, I should be fired. You know, it's like, come on, like it. And
there's
at
there are a
at the
host
worst
of
case,
people.
you can bring this to the table, and we could say, well, Joe, you're wrong here, and this is why, or you're
I
wrong
love
here,
those
and
kind of
this is why.
conversations.
That's the way it should be.
Those are the best conversations.
Open
because
in
that's
the
when
ear.
solutions get created.
That's right.
My biggest issue is Evansville needed a fighter on this issue, and we got someone who wants to cut ribbons and take pictures. That's my biggest problem. We've got.
Sing songs.
Yeah, we've got people singing songs and cheerleading, telling us how Evansville's growing and how we're moving forward together. We're not
E
moving
is for
forward.
everyone.
We're going backwards.
Yeah.
We are contracting in citizen count. We are contracting in businesses. I last month was involved in talking to a lot of the Main Street businesses. They are being killed by the very, very poorly managed construction, city construction. And it's not just NDOT. NDOT manages the highways. All the city infrastructure is managed by the city. And they are being killed by this. You can't even get downtown effectively. It's very hard. And all the walking paths, all the construction going on down there now, makes it impossible for these guys.
Well, the reality of it is, if our bill went up by
Oh, that's the other thing. They're being crushed by this.
So restaurants, all disposable income, anything that trickles down into the local economy, like when you're when you have that bill that adds, I know people that their bill is $500 more per month.
Yes.
Than it was
Yes.
last month. And so those are bigger houses. They have a little bit more money, but I know people that had $200, $300 bills that are now $500 and $600.
Absolutely.
Where
that's,
do you?
that's me.
Okay.
But I have a question. Do you guys recall whenever this whole thing was happening with the IURC and everything, that the average Evansville household, the cost was only going to go up $35 to $40 a month?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we,
yeah,
we
I
all
remember
heard
that
we all
talking
heard that.
point?
I would love to
Is
hear
there
who
not
that-
somebody that you can, I don't know.
who created that.
I remember
Whose talking point
saying,
was that?
telling people loudly, that is inaccurate. At
Yeah.
best, that's an inaccurate
Who
statement.
is that? What Centerpoint
I
told
don't
us?
even remember, but I mean, we can find that. I'm sure we can find it. But that was at best an inaccuracy. At worst, it's just a flat out lie.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
I was with a
Boldface.
Oh, completely. I was with a really good friend of mine who owns a restaurant downtown for my wife and I's anniversary. This gentleman, I've known him for many, many years, has a family restaurant. It's awesome. We go there somewhat regularly, as often as we can. He is being crippled by these energy rates. Now starting to raise questions about, what do I really want to do here? I mean, that is awful. 35 years here. And now he's having these questions. That hurt my heart in a way that it was hard to describe. It caught me off guard. I sat down, was having dinner, and he said, look, thank you so much for making this an issue that people can talk about, because they don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to get this out in the open.
The prices are going up, and the number of people coming through the door down because
true.
people can't afford to go out to eat.
Well, yeah. Not only that, but his power just to keep the building on is outrageous. So I looked at these people that protested down at Centerpoint last Friday. I would have gone down there. I really would have. I
would have too. I was out of town.
I was on cop night. I was working on shift as a police officer, or I would have been down there. But what I was struck with, and what really pricked my heart, and that's not something that's easily done, is the desperation that these people were expressing. We are desperate for change. They were protesting in front of an empty building, desperate for change. There was not a city leader there. Not one. Not one.
Mm-hmm.
That is a
That
problem.
pretty well that says a lot.
is a problem. If
It's because they don't want to talk to people that have problems. They don't want to talk about questions. Well,
I hate to paint it with a broad brush like that.
well,
because
I can paint it in my own window because
Yeah.
I asked the
Right.
questions and
Right,
I had
right.
specific things I wanted to talk about, and they said not interested.
That's unfortunate, and when I presented that plan in February, I got the same. I got
censored.
response.
There was no reasoning. There was no. Well, we did it because of this.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't. They just refused to have the conversation.
It's extremely uncomfortable to have a conversation with people that are trying to hold you accountable. And the very definition of being an elected leader is accountability. You have to be transparent and you have to be accountable. If I am in office, I'm going to expect that whatever office I'm leading is going to start providing updates, just like in a business. If I have any portion of my business underperforming or just performing, I want regular status updates, weekly meetings. Tell me how we're doing. We have obligations to the shareholders to tell them how we're doing. They invest money, we give them results. We're paying taxes and getting no results except higher bills. That's unacceptable. We have no accountability. We don't even know what they're doing. So we have the mayor come out and tell us, I'm working on this plan. Are you? What results have you created? What have you done to positively affect any amount of change in the city of Evansville, Indiana, for the citizens who are now strapped with outrageously high rates? Not just the rates from CenterPoint, but also our water company, which is a quasi-government-owned Evansville utility.
We can talk about the water just as a quick thing. I saw it, but CenterPoint. Tell me the CenterPoint stock market thing. The number that you gave me, because I had seen it. Like their profits went up in the last how many months or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, let's for anybody that didn't see that headline, Joe's getting ready to drop some information on you because your bill went up 25 to 100%.
CenterPoint stock just posted a 52-week all-time high.
52-week all-time high, and it's because they had to raise our rates because they weren't making enough money.
They didn't get their estimated rate of return. They thought that they might not get their guaranteed rate of return from the state. That is at the heart of the issue. We have someone who controls us entirely and can charge us whatever they like as long as they file the correct paperwork with the IORC. The IORC approves it. That is a problem. That is the problem, and that's why I have had good conversations with our Indiana state reps that represent us down here. I've had good conversations with our senator that represents us down here. I am teed up to have really great conversations at the highest levels of the state government. I'm looking forward to this because they all want to figure out ways to change this, and no one's giving them solutions. So the thing about having an issue and going to someone, the worst thing I hate as a business leader, and I hate it as a business leader, is when someone says, I've got a problem, and just drops it on my door. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. Now, if someone comes to me and says, here's a problem, and here's a couple of solutions I have to address it, which one do you like the most? That's something we can talk about.
Or this is what I've tried and it didn't work.
I've thought about this. Like here's what I have.
Here's what I've got. Let's workshop it. Let's figure out. Let's take the horns off of it, smooth it out, and get it into motion. Let's test it. We're not doing that. And that's what really irritates me about our local leadership here is they're not producing one single solitary solution to address this. Yes, I'm sure Mayor Terry proposed an IRC candidate for local representation of Southern Indiana. Big whoop.
That's just not.
Did she give us a name?
That's not action.
That's nothing. Do you think that a Republican governor is going to take a Democratic recommendation seriously, particularly when she's done nothing to really advocate for the community in which she lives? I wouldn't. There is very little credibility that you can rely on. Everything requires equity. I have to build up equity in the bank, in my house. I have to build up equity to get action, to create leverage. If you, as a leader, you've done nothing to build equity and momentum, what possible change?
This is going to sound really political, and I'm sorry, but I have to do it.
Yeah.
And this, I'm an observer. I'm a researcher. I look at trends. My industry, what I've done for the last 20 years is search engine optimization. A lot of that is looking at trends, looking at technical things that you do for companies that get them ranking, get them traffic, get them all these things over time. So I'm really big into looking at data and looking at trends and whatever. So it seems like the only Democratic strategy that they're very reliant on is the division. And at national level, it's the blame Trump thing. But even on these local issues, it trickles down to the same thing. So, someone will say, well, you voted for Trump, so you're evil, or this is why you were getting what we have, or whatever. And like you said in the very beginning, it's the dismissive, we're not going to talk about this because you voted for the wrong thing.
Yes.
And so part of it is, I think, the uniting, and going back to that clip from Jimmy Dore, is like, part of it is education. Part of it is this why we're here having this podcast. Part of it is, like, I don't care what party you're from. And the only reason I wouldn't want to sit down with you is if you can't have some humility. And you can't, like, I wear a shirt on like every fifth podcast or something that says I was wrong. Right. And I try to like, tell me what I've said that's wrong. And I'm open to it. Like, I've tried to have any Democrat come in and have a conversation with me. And even my good friends that I would go have a beer with them and we could sit and talk. They don't want to come and talk. They don't want to be.
They'll be ostracized by their people.
They'll get canceled.
Yes.
They'll get canceled by their own people. And so what I'm
these extremes are cannibalistic.
What I'm saying to these people, I don't care if your Democratic Party survives. I hope the current one crashes and burns. I've hoped a lot of Republican parties have crashed and burned. Our local Republican Party has been atrocious in the last. They couldn't recruit me. And all you have to do is speak common sense stuff and like, let's work on a plan that is actually going to help the families, and let's not be politically indivisible. That's all you had to do. I think some moves are being made. Hopefully things change, but it's like, it's not rocket science. It's let's work on this issue together.
Right.
And if you can unite around that, then you could probably find a lot of other things that you're like, well, we're not so far off.
I tell people this all the time. They're like, how could you be a Republican? Well, first of all, I'm more of a JFK Republican, if that makes sense. I don't care what you do in your house as long as you're not hurting kids, animals.
You're an extremist.
I must be, right? So I don't care who you love. I want everyone to be loved. I think the opportunity for inclusiveness in the Republican Party has never been greater. I think we have a leader at the national level that sees that. That's a huge part of the success he's experienced. That being said, I think we do a terrible job of finding uniting issues. We do a terrible job. This is the first issue that I've gotten or that I've seen explode like this. I did not expect people to be as engaged with that post as it was. I woke up to 100 and something shares the next morning and was very surprised. I shouldn't have been, because it's energy and everyone's feeling this pain.
Everyone needs energy.
Everyone needs energy. And they need it at an affordable cost because it's killing us. It really legitimately is killing us.
And it was even before this price hike. I remember doing research probably 3 or 4 years ago. I was thinking about mining altcoins, doing Bitcoin, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a return in the coin that would offset the electricity use because of the cost of our kilowatt hour here in Evansville versus other places.
Which is exactly
now it's gone up by double.
Never. We're never going to be able to bring in these big data centers because the energy costs too much. It will never happen.
Well, that's a whole hot talking point, and people are blaming energy rates and skyrocketing stuff on data centers. I mean,
they're thinking about it backwards. It's exactly when people tell us here in Evansville we have an affordable housing crisis. No, we do not have an affordable housing crisis. We have an affordability crisis in Evansville, and it starts with our utilities.
Yep,
that's the problem. We can't keep retain and attract talent because it costs too much to live in the city. People are leaving. These big businesses are leaving because it costs too much.
It's probably too advanced for this particular conversation because we're really focused on energy. Is I think one of the blind spots that I think the community has at across multiple levels. Since we're talking about leadership and we're talking about the community and benefiting the community, I think this is probably a decent time to bring up AI. Just because of how much it's going to change things. And I know you had an opinion about,
absolutely.
We probably would disagree at some level at the extreme, how much change it's going to make in what period of time. But again, that's just a nuanced conversation in a timeline. It's not about what it can or can't do. It's what it might or will do. It's like, we're just having conversation nuance. But anyway, one of the biggest things that me and Travis have talked about, because he and I are, he does AI stuff in his real job. I usually pay him in bourbon, but I'm not paying him tonight.
I was wondering if I was getting paid.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, no.
I think that would be inappropriate.
He'll double what he pays me. He'll pay you double.
See, if you'd have brought me some bourbon now, we'd have been talking. Yeah, we've been talking about stuff. But at the end of the day, there are so many things just outside of energy that are not only our local mayor's office and leadership is not talking about. Like, the conversations that don't happen and the questions that aren't asked are almost I don't want to say enraging me because I don't want to sound like an angry person, but I'm astounded by the lack of want to even talk about it. Two different things. going back, and I've got a bunch of clips, and man, we're not even going to get into clips today because we're just having awesome conversation. Maybe the next time we'll come back and have some clips. But the reason for Unite the Divided for me was to tear down the barriers between religion and party and go to topics and talk about things. Energy is a big one because we can all kind of come to some center point where we think that no pun intended. Man, I just destroyed that word. We can all come to the conclusion that things are not good and we need to fix them, and we need to have a larger conversation about it that isn't political.
Right.
That's Unite the Divided. That's what the whole concept of this. That originated from the COVID window and how our local health departments all the way to our federal health departments handled that, and how our media and our local businesses
propagandized.
This is where is where you like. I know you probably have to gauge and be a little more careful about what you say, but you know, I've had 61 conversations with Dr. Roy Arnold, and we talk a lot about medical tyranny. We talk about what happened in COVID. We talked about what we were told COVID was and what we told the vaccines were supposed to do versus what was allowed to be talked about and what was not allowed to be talked about, and then what all came through that was people forced vaccinated. You know, people were basically forced against their will to get vaccinated or lose your job, lose your spot in the military.
It's economic steering all over again.
It's economic steering. So at the end of the day, though, here's the real problem that I have. And this is the problem. We could talk about this in any of the segments of tyranny that I like talking about, is there's been, I don't want to even say accountability. There's been no acknowledgement of anything that was done wrong. There's been no transparency about, oh shit, we really messed that one up.
Yeah.
If this happens again, and Bill Gates is already saying we're going to get another pandemic or whatever it was, and so you can expect it's going to be here. Our health department, we have no indication that it's going to act any differently than it did on the last one. So I'm not saying this boils back down to the mayor's office, but for goodness sakes, if I was the head of that office, I would certainly be talking about it and holding people accountable and saying public health is like kind of one of my jobs, and we could get back into the water.
Yeah.
We can get into the water stuff, which is kind of pivotal to me. But there's been no conversation. There's been no transparency. There's been no like, hey, we're going to do it better next time, because it's so clear what got messed up. It is such like, even.
Well, I think
to
your point, I think expecting that, and I'm using the current administration as an example, and our prior administration.
It happened it started during the prior administration. Right. So whatever.
So let's assume for a minute that we expect some level of response. Do you imagine, given the predestined outcome that the Democratic Party tried to achieve by skipping nominations, by skipping primaries, by skipping the entire political process, the Democratic political process.
They haven't done that in like 12 years.
And appointing somebody. They appointed a candidate after they deposed their current sitting, effectively deposed the current sitting. Do you imagine that there's going to be any level or desire for accountability around any of those things? I just say that because that is the most obvious and easy analogy I can draw, but I doubt you're.
Well, but our health department, and with all due respect, Joe, is not political. Regardless of the mayor,
should not be.
Regardless of the mayor, regardless of whoever comes into office. Let's say Republican wins next time. I know I'll never get elected because I say things that people don't like to hear, and they're not going to throw money behind me, which is why I'm not making any money. I don't take money from business. I have a lot of business owning friends that would love to give me money, but I can't advertise for them because I'm going to say things sometimes that some people aren't going to like. I've got Democrats that buy my products too, and I have I don't care.
Sydney Sweeney's got good genes.
I'm a public health guy. Like, I care about what you pipe into my house, what's in the air, what's in the ground. I that is not political.
It affects everybody.
It should not be, but there's an agenda behind every political.
So this goes to a uniparty thing, like the vaccine mandate that got channeled through everywhere. I didn't hear hardly any Democrats complaining about it. Like, I got ostracized because I had a position outside of the approved narrative of you got to get vaccinated or you're going to kill everyone.
Kill grandma.
You don't like grandma because of this, that, and the other. And, I just never bought into it because, like Jimmy Dore said, like Jimmy Dore was a Democrat, and he said it was like Democrats were the people a decade ago that were anti-pharma.
Oh, 100%.
So if they said anything negative about pharma, whatever, they flipped the switch. Well, Trump came out with the turbo vaccine or whatever it was, or it was actually Fauci, and he was just sold on it. So as soon as Trump wanted it, then they didn't want it.
Then they hated
but
it,
then when it was Biden's idea, then they wanted it again. It's like it was a bad idea at all levels, and we didn't spotlight it, and we're still not talking about it. And again, the still not talking about it is really where I have a problem.
That's exactly, you described exactly how we got to a monopoly in energy space. We haven't talked about it. No one's talked about it. It just happened, and no one's done anything substantive to change it. For the first time, and as long as I can remember, people are now talking about it, and they are getting lawmaker attention to make substantive changes. And sadly, it's not being advocated by our elected leaders here in our city necessarily, not in a real way. It's being forced
On
by
us.
collective social outrage into the public space. That's what's happening. And that's a good thing. I'm happy that it's going on.
We're getting involved,
Right.
And we have to
Right.
be involved for sure.
I think shame on me, shame on all of us for not being involved earlier and letting it get to this place. So, it's a positive outcome. Hopefully we get to the positive outcome.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to throw in some humor here. I think there's a guy online that I don't know where he aligns politically or whatever, but you don't have very many energy jokes. But this one was, and this guy is very active. He's a guy that I've been referred to by other people who's very active. And again, we haven't had a conversation, so I don't know where he aligns. He's like, holy mackerel, my CenterPoint electric bill just came out. It's so high that even Snoop Dogg would be jealous. And that's from Brent. I'm not going to say his last name, but he's very active in the community that you and I are trying to rally people around. Again, whatever, me having this conversation with you is not about what party you're affiliated with, and not me necessarily saying you're the best person to solve all the world's problems, or at least
I
this
don't
problem.
think that I am either. I think that I'm just a person that's willing to engage.
You're the person I've heard the most logical. You're willing to step in it. You're putting your name out there. You're having conversations about it. You're wanting a transparent plan. You're wanting accountability. And now that you've said that out loud, if you did get some kind of a thing of power, I would say, Joe, what happened?
What's going on?
Because-
Unless things happen.
Unless thing happened.
Right.
And then if it
Exactly.
happens, let's go. And I might
think
say, man, you could have done a little more of this. And you're like, well, it didn't happen because of this. And I'm like, well,
That makes sense.
That
How do we
makes
get past it?
Let's go.
It's just like in business. If things don't go exactly as you want, you alter the plan to get to the eventual outcome. Some involves compromise. Some involve just force of will pushing it down the road. But if no one does anything, nothing's going to change. Nothing. And so that's what's amazing. The good news is we have the attention of the lawmakers at this point, and that's a very positive thing. These people want to help. We've got attention, we've got momentum, and I think that's going to be really great. I'm hoping for very positive outcomes. I'm doing everything that I can to enable that, and I know that I'm not the only one, and I'm not the smartest guy in the rooms that we're talking in either. I want all of the smart people. I want every single smart person that knows a single solitary thing about municipal utilities and energy to be in that room coming up with the best solution for the people of Evansville and Southern Indiana. That's the right answer. I don't care if you've got a D or an R or I don't care what you have. It does not matter to me. You come up with a great idea, we're doing it. Let's test it. Let's get it in, implemented. 1, 2, 3, done. I don't know why this is so hard. I'm tired of these defensive nonsense tactics. It's so-and-so's fault. You never were engaged before. This is a Republican problem. It's a Democrat. I don't care. In fact, if you have conversation talking points that involve any of those things, don't bother responding to me. Don't talk to me on my posts. Don't engage me in the street, and don't talk to me in conversation, because it does nothing to help me get solutions in place. Nothing. And I think it actually presents these weird little, like you were talking about, these mental roadblocks that stop people from being unified and making change. It's totally unproductive.
So going to pivot just a little bit because I told you I was going to circle back around to it. And our boy Travis over here is a music guy, and he challenged me. So this might, at this point of the conversation, might get us banned from YouTube, because I'm going to probably go a little bit over on the accepted amount of music, and you don't have to put it on. You don't have to put the screen
Don't
on.
play much. We could read the lyrics, but you can't.
No. So this is kind of a thing that I've had going on in my life and what I've believed for a very long time. But
Don't drink the water.
Okay, that's good enough.
That's all we can do.
Like 8 seconds, 6 seconds,
6 seconds.
6 seconds. Yeah.
So, so I told you I got censored by the local administration, current administration, because we were critical of the water department, and I have been critical of the water quality for a very long time, not to mention the cost. And so, we're lucky enough to live in a little bigger house, and maybe I don't know what percentage, and it doesn't really matter. We do have sprinklers that are on part of the time in the summer when it's hot. Luckily this year we haven't used a lot of them because it was a very wet spring and fairly mild summer, so we've used them just a little bit. But our water bill has been upwards of $300 per month.
That's crazy.
And I don't let my kids drink the water because I don't trust what's in the water. And that's my own thing.
Sure.
Talk about fluoride. Me and Dr. Roy and Travis have talked about fluoride a lot. We've talked about all the pharmaceutical runoff and the chemicals from crops, all the different things that aren't filtered out of our water. And RFK's talked about it a lot. So, I was very excited about Maha for a lot of reasons. And a lot of it was,
I think a lot of people were.
He talked about fluoride. He talked about water. He talked about chemicals in food. He talked about all the different dyes, all these different things. And I'm not trying to get into the weeds of that, except to say, let's say we're averaging $200 a month in water.
high.
I'm bringing in a bottled water company. I'm bringing in bottled water that's clean, filtered, that I can measure. And I've asked to get accurate measurements and to be assured that this drinking water is safe. And you can't it's another one of those, no accountability, no transparency. They send you to the website. This is what it is. Well, I haven't gone through the process of getting the actual water sampled per se. But if you turn on your water at any given point, you can smell the chlorine. And I understand you have to put chlorine in water to clean it and whatever. But again, price alone, and the quality of trusting to drink it. There's two things are non-starters for me.
Even if we distill it down to simple price alone, it's a stunning number. And I have not taken the time, and I probably should have, to track what the increases year over year over the last 10 years have been. But
It's a lot.
It's a shocking number. My wife and I live in not a large house. It's under 2,900 square feet. I mean, it's a nice size house. And it's just the two of us. No sprinklers, no irrigation, no nothing. And it's $150, between $130, $150 every month, regardless of what happens. And the fees are oftentimes more than the water bill itself.
And that includes trash, right? The trash is included in that. So, if you did a private trash collection, I don't remember what I used to do it we lived on the north side before, and we weren't in city. I think it was $20-something, $30 for trash. So, I mean, eliminate, let's say $50 from an average bill just for trash pickup.
Yeah. And we don't
have to talk about trash.
Yeah, we can't talk about trash.
With all the stuff going on with the Republic, I think they've started ironing that out. But water department is another one of those bureaucracies and institutions that's just built into our city government. And it doesn't matter what administration comes in. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. To me, it's a transparency and it's an accountability issue. Like, I don't know where to go with that, except to say that it just, as many new cars and fleet vehicles, and you started talking about the maintenance of all these different things that the mayor has.
We can go down that that path with the wheel.
This is kind of a sequitur to, I think, to that is we have skyrocketing everything, and as far as cost of living here, everything's got to be new. We're working on all these different projects, and I can't drink the water. I won't drink the water. I won't let my kids drink the water because I just don't trust what's in it. You could solve that by giving us assurance that all the testing is being done, and get random tests. Go down to Travis's house and pull water out of his tap, and let a third party run a test on that.
You know what would solve a lot of this is if it wasn't a monopoly.
Yeah.
Well, that would solve a lot of problems.
Again?
Yeah, that old chestnut. If we would just bring in capital market principles and allow multiple competitors to come in, this would solve all these problems because they'd be competing for the best product. This is why we're better. This is why we're better. Here's why you want to pay a little more, or here's why we're so much cheaper. This would solve the problem. And the secret is it's all about money. This, if we privatized this, it would solve a lot of our problems. You need to
privatize with competition.
Yes,
you have to
100%.
have
because otherwise we'd be in Centerpoint's situation.
That's right, 100%.
We're just now.
I just needed to add that.
Oh no, that's good clarification. Because we need competitive interests to create a true capital market, and that's why people say, "Well, capitalism is bad." No, it isn't. Capitalism is the solution to monopolies.
That's why you live in America right now.
That's why America is great
Yeah.
for the most part. I mean, we have an amazing system that, when it's left unhindered, operates and creates wealth for everyone, top down, and creates opportunity for everyone. It's a real problem. It's just a gigantic problem when we start putting restrictions, undue restrictions and burdens on what the capital markets do. It starts creating opportunity for the corruption of that market, which is what we're seeing with Centerpoint, which is what we're experiencing with the water utility as well.
What was your hard line? What kind of when did you need to be out of here? I had a list of. I have so many questions. Obviously, I'm not going to get to a lot of the clips, but I had like so many questions for you because I believe, Joe, you come to the table here with a very specific set of skills and a fresh. It's not a Liam Neeson.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like,
God, I just knew exactly where you where you were going, man. But
I will find you.
But the reality of it is, I know there's a lot of people out there that have questions, and so who are? I hear conversations going on all these forums and different people. I hear about EREP, and I'm hearing about all these larger organizational groups that are moving influence and money around. And I'm just trying, and I know you probably have to be a little careful in some of this, but it's like, what can we really do with these different groups and organizations to demand more? I mean, do we have to, does it have to just be a citizen action committee, and maybe you or somebody else takes the lead on that, and we're just unifying everyone around this thing and do something with it? Like, what is
I think
is EREP helpful, not helpful? Any of these other groups helpful, not helpful? They're moving a lot of money around.
Yeah, EREP's moving a lot of money around, but the purpose of EREP is for regional economic development, right? So that's not really,
How do you develop whenever utilities are out of skyrocket?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is probably outside their lane of best effort if we're looking at their mission. I think it boils down to local elected official representation, accountability, transparency. There needs to be a call for that. And
but there's not really enough money. There's not really enough money in any individual campaign or any individual seat. Like, I could look, I'm here and I'll run my mouth all day long and talk about how good it would be to do all these things. And I think it's getting easier and easier with AI and development and smart people.
That's a wildly useful tool to create accountability.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much he and I have talked about it. Really, we have a basic concept to hold each individual person accountable in, and that's one of the things that I talked about with. I wanted to talk about with the mayor a long time ago. But I think again that takes an individual using their own idea and coming in with the idea and funding it and running with it.
So
I think
so I think there's a couple of things with that, and I think that's an interesting way to look at it. So in any business I've ever operated or been a part of, we have key performance indicators that monitor the business and give us a quick snapshot, weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is that we have to be working on, that tell us not academically, but right now what's going on, so that we can proactively, not reactively, make adjustments to the business to compensate for opportunity, strengths, weaknesses, things that are going on that we can't control, whatever that is. We try and navigate around those obstacles or capture those opportunities. We don't have that. And the reason we don't have that is because we have people who've never run business running our city and our state governments. These people have never run a business. They never had to compete. If you run a non-profit your entire life, all you've had to do is put your hand out and you get money. They've never
you're good at asking for it.
Had to compete. Right. Yeah, that's why they tax us.
Right.
Because they're used to saying, "Oh, I'll just go get money. Oh, I need more money."
Yep.
It's a lazy Band-Aid. And it is totally ineffectual. And once you have a tax in place, it's so easy to increase it, and it never goes away. It never goes away. we got really used to spending dollars that we did not earn and we had no right to during COVID. When they started dropping out all those huge COVID incentives, these rescue packages, the city of Evansville in particular, and I want to keep it kind of narrowly focused there, we got hundreds of millions of dollars that were never ours to begin with. And we started deploying that cash in ways that were unsustainable at best. Once you do that and you start hemorrhaging that kind of money, people start to expect it. It's like getting leather bucket seats or seat warmers in your car. You don't want to ever not have it. It's hard to go backwards.
Yeah.
But that's not how you run a business. But if you're a non-for-profit, the need only gets bigger. I've got a bigger need. I've got a bigger need. I've got a bigger need. I need more. I need more. I need more. No one's ever comes along and says, hey, wait, show me the need. Show me your results. Show me the ROI. I've sat inside city council meetings time and time again where they've just handed out hundreds of thousands of reallocated dollars to these nonprofits with absolutely zero proof of return on investment. It's stunning. That's our tax dollars going out the door. And that's just one working example.
And city council and mayor has the ability to do that?
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so
I mean, that's just one working example. And that did not necessarily even happen just in this administration. I saw it happen in other administrations.
well, let's get to accountability for a next administration or even for the current administration. I think before the power went on and the camera started, you had mentioned current budget increases and things that have been money that's being spent on IT or whatever that is. We've got, I've worked in the IT realm for a long time, and I'm not sure how much better we've gotten in any of that capacity. Here's the challenge, or the thing that I would say to anyone that's thinking about running for mayor or office is we're spending all this money on projects that you can't really name and you can't really show anything for at the end of the day. Travis mentioned Doge whenever you walked in. I don't know if the mic was on at the time or not, but
At a local Doge.
like one of the things for me that I talked about, and it didn't gain energy because the politics of the world said, if Trump said it and Musk did it, it must be racist,
horrible.
must be bad. I would say if you had a platform of coming in as the next leader, if you could allocate a small budget at AI development, that could be a system that was put into place that
Just turning out metrics.
So this is an idea that could make a lot of money for people, and I'm not going to get too
Political
deep
KPIs. Wouldn't that be great?
So
Wouldn't that be
like this is an
wonderful? I mean, honestly.
accountability that's transparent, that can take people doing individual research and looking into different things, looking at other things that are working in other cities, whether it's energy or specific policy going down the line, but basically building in some kind of an accountability tool that the city of Evansville ends up owning. So it's not like me, Chad, coming in
very
and saying, hey, Joe, give me some money whenever you come into the administration, and it's a non-for-profit, quote unquote, but give me $500,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is, and me and Travis are going to not sleep for the next 3 weeks, and we're going to create this AI system that builds accountability and transparency into all administrations moving forward. And that's where we're going with technology. That's where we're going to end up.
That's where I hope we implement
we're gonna
in the government.
there. It's gonna be there.
We'll do it in the private sector for certain.
Oh, yeah,
But
for
in the government, I think there'll be some resistance because we don't necessarily want to peel back all the layers at the end because it's going to get uncomfortable because everyone's going to say, why did this get allowed to happen? Who's responsible for this happening in the past? In order to truly do something like that, we have to divorce ourselves of what happened in the past. We have to say, we're done. We're done talking about what's happened in the past. It happened. We're there. Now we're making
I
changes.
think the majority of people are there.
I would like to think so.
I think so.
I
think
hope so.
the 20%,
so.
the 10 to 20% on either side that's just going to blame.
Here and there.
They're just going to launch things
I
across the
agree
table.
with
You're
that.
never going to, like any scale, you're going to have people on either side. Then you got the things going up to the masses, and we just kind of go like this person's
think
making a
that would
lot
be
of
amazing.
noise, so we're just going to let this one go away.
I think the next, whether our current mayor stays in office or there's a new elected official that moves into that space that occupies that office, I don't think it's okay that in the last year our city budget's ballooned $20 million. I don't think that's okay.
Do we have that money?
No,
Where's-
we don't have that money.
Who's going to pay for that?
Oh well, we have a wheel tax coming. We've got a new wheel tax.
Okay,
We've got
so
new
was that a
taxes
good
coming.
was that a good segue?
We have
Travis finally gets
yeah,
that.
this
This
Why don't you-
segment brought to you by the wheel tax.
Travis, what's what's your give him a question? What do you? I don't know enough about it, so I'm going to learn some things here. So what's
No, I was interested in hearing kind of what he wanted, like his thoughts on that, because I mean, I don't really have a lot of information on it or an inside scoop on it or anything of that nature. So
I just heard about it.
I did a little bit of reading, and I realized that it's not that it's kind of being pushed that it's a necessity, but it's not, or not a necessity, but
well, I would say
requirement.
It
or whatever,
absolutely
but
is.
it's not.
That's a complete fallacy. So
Yeah.
what is it called, and what's the proposal? Who's doing it?
right. So to kind of back up just a little bit, we just kind of touched on. We have a $20 million increase in our city general fund or our city budget.
What's that for?
Yeah, I wish I knew. So our controller's office has a 50% increase. It went from 5.2 million to 7.8 million. Our IT spending went up 40% or 41%.
From what to what?
I could source that number. but
Okay. Well, I'm wondering what they're ITing at. You know.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
Prettier website for the city.
But yeah, find your website. Pretty
None of-
website.
like the BMV is not. I know that's state level, but nothing communicates with anything. So.
Anyway,
you know,
sorry. Yeah.
now we've got a wheel tax that's being floated for $60 to $120 per family, and that is not just going to impact the families going to work. It's going to drastically impact the small business service providers out there. These people are. Where do you think that cost is going to get forwarded to? It's not going to be absorbed in the company. That's going to be forwarded right down to the consumer. So I saw a article that was out today, and it in the State of the Union that Stephanie Terry put out several months ago. I had a response to it. It was pretty strongly worded, and I was pretty angry about some of the things. I was pretty frustrated about some of the things that I heard. I don't like polish on things that have no business being celebrated. And all I heard was people clapping and
It's a big PR stunt.
congratulating themselves on what I widely consider to be failure. And I think a lot of businesses would widely consider. We don't have wild business expansion. We don't have citizen growth. We don't have a well-built infrastructure and road system. We don't even have mowed grass on the intersections coming in and out of our town. You can go off the Lloyd Expressway at any single interchange, and the grass is 3-4 feet tall in places. It's so much taller than what the city even allows a private citizen to have. It's appalling. And that's not.
Hey,
just
don't
this-
give them an idea to start finding us.
We can't pink tag
We'll
those
be,
or something?
Yeah, we should be able
we'll
to
be getting
put-
fined
pink
and paying. paying ourselves.
it makes me want to walk out there and just pink tag it myself. But I mean, how do we have pride in our city and in the image of our city when every single exchange coming off into our city looks like crap? I mean, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. There's 1,000 ways to fix that problem, and they're not doing any of them. So we have 514 million in a 2025 general fund. That's up sharply from prior years. I think, frankly, that should be sounding alarm bells for everybody. Instead of trimming, this administration's inflating staffing and program spending in the housing, in the planning, and generally just overall.
So we have a $500 million budget.
Apparently, $500 million budget. So the next leadership that comes into this, whether it's the existing, the next round, I think they need to be much more fiscally minded. There needs to be a strong fiscal discipline applied to what we're doing in the city. There's only a certain amount of core competencies and core services the city needs to provide. We need to have our public be safe. We need to create incentives for small, medium, and large businesses. And we need to keep the streets operating. That's it. That's what we need to do as a city. And yet we find creative ways to spend money all over the place.
Well, I mean, we're housing people that aren't
Yes.
citizens of our
We-
city or our state or our country.
Our
We're spending money in places all over the place that aren't going to people that have either lived here forever and for whatever reason had problems, ended up homeless, ended up with medical issues. I mean, we don't give back to our own community.
Really, the theme of this administration seems to be spending it first, and that's the line between actual governance and excess. We're just trying to auto magic up.
What, throw money at the wall and see what sticks kind of
Well,
deal?
it's not only that; it's borrowing money from things we don't even have yet. So,
I don't understand what's supposed to stick.
yeah. Well,
I mean, what is
That's
it
what I was
actually-
asking
what
you
is it-
initially,
what is it-
like, what are we
what
trying
is
to
and
do
we'll go
with
through
it?
that. I'll walk you through kind of some highlights here. So the talking points around the wheel tax in the news article that I saw, it was referenced that it's required that we have a wheel tax before we get state subsidization on our roads. First of all, we spend a paltry amount on road maintenance in the city of Evansville. It's surprisingly small.
All the construction you see right now is state.
Yeah, it's state.
It's not city.
Well, downtown.
Most of it. Well, downtown is, but I'm talking about all this Lloyd crap.
Oh yeah, it's all over the
Expressway.
place.
But anyway,
So I dug into this a little bit. I think it sounds like you did too, Travis. So HEA 1461, which is the statute that was cited, it permits rather than dictates a wheel tax. Evansville will choose to tax rather than make necessary reforms to cut excess spending. They don't want to cut the spending. They want to put a Band-Aid on it so that we can continue spending and get subsidized to do more spending.
yeah, bleed more money out of the family.
So there's
every
there's
family.
a play on words that's happening that
It's just a flat out misrepresentation.
so we're being
of what the actual
told
fact is.
that it's
Correct.
being forced down, but it's really not.
Yes, it's absolutely shocking that was said in that way, and it may be cited as an inaccuracy, but in reality,
Power's only going up $35 to $40 a household.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
You
anyway.
should have said 35 to 40%. That's what it should have been.
Trust me,
35 to 40%.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help you.
Families that are grappling with the high utility bills and inflation are now getting added local government taxation. That's shocking to me.
Yeah.
This wheel tax is nothing but a shortcut to cover the Terry administration overspending, and it's not even a good shortcut. It's barely a Band-Aid. It's like everything else that's happens. It's a less than substantive answer to a problem that they've created, and it is not sustainable. Small business and dual income households will bear the brunt of this. The owners of these small businesses are going to start factoring these wheel tax prices into their cost of services.
So it looks like each passenger vehicle is $25
Yeah,
a year.
minimum,
Is the-
minimum,
right? Minimum.
depending on weight. So my biggest point here is the tax that is being proposed here. It's not the solution. It's actually a symptom of the larger problem of overspending. That's my biggest piece. So we're now taxed to heat our home. We have sales tax on the utilities that we pay. Now we're going to be taxed to leave it to go to work to pay for our home. That's insane to me. That is an insane concept to me. This isn't an infrastructure funding. This is budgetary failures, and that's trying to be remediated by the taxpayers. They're trying to find more money, shake more money out of us, and it's just awful. And part of the reasons they're doing this is because Evansville is throwing multi-millions at this affordable housing crisis. My argument has been and will continue to be, Evansville isn't in an affordable housing crisis. Evansville is in an affordability crisis.
Like you could afford a home if you could afford the other stuff.
Correct. If we could afford the utilities to power it, I mean, it'd be
Right.
shocking.
Yeah.
So
Because technically, home ownership is going to be cheaper than rent.
it should be
mostly,
It
usually,
should be.
mostly.
So we can start talking about this affordable housing concept. Well, I work in real estate. That's what my bread and butter is. I'm the CEO of a real estate company. Household growth in Evansville is flat or falling. Evansville has lost residents, not grown residents. It is very, very surprising. So they have a report called the Bowen Report that they commissioned, that the Evansville Housing Authority or the City of Evansville commissioned to address or identify the specifics of the Evansville region housing crisis. This report is interesting, and I'll tell you why. You can draw your own conclusions. I'm not going to lead the witness. So we have a current vacancy rate at or around 11% in all of our availability, our rental availability, or our housing. So that's about let's see. It says Bowen's Balanced Market, their goal is 4 to 6%, and we currently are sitting at about 11.
Okay.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That doesn't scream crisis to me. So again, they cycle into replacement needs. I believe this has some question marks around it. Bowen counts units as, quote, obsolete due to minor construction issues or tenant overcrowding. I don't know that that's an actual demolition necessary event.
Right.
I think that
You're overcrowded, so let's create less.
Right. Let's create less, or let's put up a new version of of subsidized housing. I don't like that. And then the one that gets me the worst, the one that actually stunned me when I understood that this is a metric they're calculating. They are calculating a projected consumer commuter demand. 64%, and this is an important statistic, 64% of higher wage jobs in Evansville are held by non-residents of the city who will not move here.
Wow.
64%. They live in a county, they live in Henderson, they live elsewhere outside.
They probably went to Henderson because the energy is so much cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's
It's shockingly cheaper across the river.
Oh my gosh, yes it is. 64% of higher paying jobs are outside the city. So what's that leave us with? That leaves us with medium incomes that are not easily taxed. They aren't going to bring in these massive tax windfalls. That's just not going to be something we see. So instead of creating opportunities for generational wealth capture in the form of first-time home buyers or incentives to rehabilitate current homes that exist, they want to tear them down and build multi-unit apartment complexes, which are statistically proven time and time again. And it doesn't matter which party you look at, the crime statistics are the same. It raises the crime in that geographic region tenfold, 10x. That's what happens. So property values plummet. That's just the reality of the situation.
And there's some more psychological evaluation that has been done with communal living, like condo or apartment living versus having your own home for children and their growth and their.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then that whole thing, there's a lot of, we don't have to get into them, but there's a lot of statistics on that as well.
So while I'm not saying that there's not an affordable, there's not a need for affordable housing in Evansville, because I want everyone to have a home that is safe, that is adequate to live. I think that's a basic human right and a necessity. Mm-hmm. I think we're conflating the issue. We're confusing things. If we had an Evansville that was affordable to live in, suddenly our housing would become affordable again.
Sure.
That's the biggest problem. I find it shocking, painful, and irritating beyond expression that our local city government thinks that they can develop and create housing solutions better than the private market can. It's been proven over and over and over that's inaccurate at best. That's inaccurate at best. They're not doing anyone a favor. They may be stabilizing individual situations.
Who's the driver of that? Would you say?
The driver of that is the Evansville Housing Authority and their nonprofit development arm, Advantix.
Well, there's a lot of national stuff going. A lot of conversations going on about how housing authorities and all those think groups do a lot of not so good things.
Once again, it's a follow the money. Where's the money going? Where's the money
bureaucracy.
happening? Right. You introduce all these layers of bureaucracy that control how things are being developed, where things are being developed, and what type of development is happening. You got to look at the developers that are doing the work. You've got to look at who's in the mix in terms of zoning, building commissions, all these things, and figure out, why is this even happening? And could it be done better?
Not only that, it's subsidized, right?
Right. And
so that's just more of a burden on everyone else.
But you're putting, even outside of that, let's assume the very best.
All comes back to the money, though.
Right, all comes back to the money. Let's assume the very best intentions for everybody. We're all willing to share. We all want everyone to have adequate housing. You're not giving them the opportunity to thrive. The bills are still extremely expensive. The utilities are still extremely expensive in these housing units. It's going to chain them to these rentals or these rent-to-owns or whatever they call them, and they're never going to have the opportunity to own their first-time home. They're never going to have the opportunity for generational wealth capture. This is a huge problem, and it's only getting worse. Every time they tear down houses and build a multi-unit apartment complex, it's getting worse. That's not making our city better. That's setting us back. That's a huge, huge problem, and one that could be so easily addressed by saying, hey, guys, private developers, come in and tell me how you do it. You've got a great plan. Go do it. What do you need from me? How do you make this administration or the next one the yes administration? Give me a good plan. How do we get to yes? If I were a leader in the city of Evansville and I was sitting in that chair, my mandate for all the development, all the things that would put us into forward motion in Evansville would be to everyone that worked with me in that team, how do we get to yes? If you tell me no, we have a problem. Tell me how we're getting to yes and how long it's going to take us to get there and what hurdles we have to clear to make it a reality. That's all I want to know. How do we get to yes?
And like you said, bringing in the right people that would know how to get
Exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It requires strong personalities. It requires very creative solutions. And it requires people willing to put themselves out there to make decisions that aren't always going to be popular. It's just part of the equation. And we don't do that. We don't do that well. So I think when you really start looking into how the money is being spent in Evansville, and I'm actually putting together a plan to try and figure that out, how and where is the money go. The sources and uses document for the city of Evansville. I think that should be a mandate. I would love to see a commitment from every single candidate running for leadership in Evansville. We're going to commit to putting together a KPI that says sources and uses. We're going to break it down. The money comes from here, the money goes to here, and ends up there. And this is what it's being done with it. And here's your ROI, citizens of Evansville. That is a quick document that every business in Evansville that does any amount of lending produces. Mm-hmm. It's not complicated. It should be readily available. And I would, if I were moving in the direction of leadership of a municipality, of a city like Evansville, I would make that a primary campaign promise. I would put a sources and uses, money comes in here, document together every single month. This is where the money came from. This is where the money went, and this is where the money ended up. This is what you got, City of Evansville, for the money that we spent.
Part of the software that I'm envisioning and dreaming about that me and Travis would spend 3 weeks in our basement if you paid us enough money would be directly that. Is you just have inputs and you like here's what it is, here's where it's going. Very very Doge-ish.
Just that would be wonderful. That'd be wonderful if it could be automated. The housing authority has spent the Evansville Housing Authority's Advantix has deployed $454 million in development across many different municipalities, 1,500 plus apartments across multiple states, which has been backed heavily by low-income housing tax credits and city match funds. LIHTC, that's taxation.
Yep.
Match funds, that's taxation. That's where those money that comes from us. That's subsidization, and then the developers come in and build it and then sell it. And we don't get that money back. It's just gone.
There's no such thing as government spending. It's our spending. It's our money. The government
spending
doesn't
on our
make
behalf.
money.
They reach into our checkbook and they take our money
without really asking, without any real blueprint.
That is also my next talking
accountability, transparency.
If a leader of a city said, "Here's the 3 things we want to do," okay, City of Evansville, vote on what's most important to you, and we'll do it. Here's the 3 things on the list. Vote on it. This is what we're doing this year. 3 things. What's important to you? How do you want us to invest your money in the city? That's what that question really is.
I almost think that a single talking point you could come in. I would never run for mayor ever in a million years because I can't shut my mouth long enough. But mostly I would say, I promise you one thing, if I leave here in however many years, you're going to have an accountability system in place that you can hold every person after me accountable. And that's going to be that's going to be a central theme. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to insert what I'm telling you into the same system that I'm building for it to hold me accountable and for it to hold everyone accountable thereafter. Mm-hmm. And to me, for us just keep having these conversations and we're talking about $500 million there and 20 million over here. And it's like, there's no way individual citizens can keep up with that and really understand.
Nor should they have to.
No, they
shouldn't have to. It's
impossible
to try and figure these things out. And money's moved and reallocated across the budgetary lines.
All you can see is red and black.
That's it.
I should know by saying, why is this thing draining out? What's
happening here?
What's happening here? It's a spreadsheet.
It's not even that. It's just a KPI saying this is what we're investing in. This is what's happened. This is where we are.
Yeah.
Sources and uses. That's all you have to have. And then we want to do these 3 capital. We have 3 opportunities for 3 to 5 capital opportunities for the city of Evansville. Where do you want to invest your dollars?
Right.
My 2 cents would be I would maybe rank vote that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not undoable. That encourages citizen participation. That encourages ownership. That encourages pride in place.
Here's one more layer that I would add. I talked about this a few years ago when I started the podcast or was developing the concept, is creating a system basically where every politician or wannabe politician comes in and you're graded and ranked on each of whatever the number of questions that we have across the board is, here's my position, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to work on, here's what accountability, transparency. Each individual person can be graded. Basically, he said, up vote, down vote. And that same thing is like, how well, if Joe becomes the head of the utility department, whatever utility, how good of a job is he doing? Because he said he's going to do these things. And then if it comes to vote again next time, or we're reassessing, does Joe get to keep his job, or anybody else gets to keep their job?
That's exactly the way it should be.
Accountability right there. It's like, I don't have to listen to a campaign speech. I don't have to listen to somebody in front of Facebook promising me what somebody else did wrong or what I'm going to do next. But this is exactly what we need.
That would be an incredibly, because people make wild promises all the time, and sometimes those promises can't be fully kept because it's an impossibility. They haven't delved into it deep enough to figure out, there are some roadblocks. It's going to take longer than 2 years. It'll take longer than a minute. But at the end of the day, as long as they're making this forward progress and are achieving actual verifiable results, that sets the stepping stones for the next person to do it, and the next person after them. I love that concept. I think that every single politician that runs should commit.
Well, the city of Evansville, we're paying for that website. Okay, we're paying. We're paying.
Of course we are.
We're paying for that website. Yep. That website should have a very.
Here's what we're doing. Here's where your invested dollars are going.
You could do polling. You could do all kinds of things on that.
You could do so many things. And again, this is me talking as a citizen. Is what I think would be the best thing. And if you're a politician that wants to get elected, this to me is a talking point. Like, AI is going to make this so much easier and so much cheaper.
It should, yes.
Because every other conversation you have is like, well, how much is that going to cost, and how am I going to sell this? Well, you're going to sell it with transparency, accountability, forever forward.
That's
the only way that you break it is you turn it off, or you're not doing what you're supposed to do with the system.
That's right.
Which there would need to be public accountability.
Yes.
There would need to be an auditor looking,
should be
and
an independent auditor that's making sure it's going right.
So it's really simple.
It's not.
It's
businesses
really
do
simple.
it all the time.
It's really simple.
Businesses do this all the time. That's what's astonishing to me.
Well, I want to give a quick shout out to some local groups.
Yes.
I've heard DAA, CE, Direct Action Against CP, and there's another one I just heard something from.
That team of people has been some of the strongest voices in this fight. I think it's amazing that they continue. I applaud them. They work so hard. A
new voice that I just heard, President's Neighborhood Leadership Team. Don't even really know what that is. I saw a letter, that an action plan, and everything that I've heard from all these people, I'm basically plugging it in to AI into Grok and saying, here's all the different things coming on. Like, my goal in part of this is uniting the divide. Is even on those, what you said is accurate. Those groups are fantastic. So much work is done. So much
they work so hard,
and they don't get paid for it. No. There's none of that. What I feel like, though, is like this conversation and more conversations like this, where we can get around a table and agree on what we agree on, and let's just get around something that we can unite around. Right.
That's the step one.
That's the step one. And I think there's everybody out there, even on this page, like they're all swimming in different directions. And I think, when you just scream accountability from Centerpoint, or it's the Republican governor's fault or whatever, it's a distraction in a lot of ways. It's a distraction, because what you have to have
is a
central plan that's decentralized from power. So like one of our big things that we talk about is decentralizing everything. Like, the planning shouldn't be done by some bureaucrat or somebody, whatever. Like you said it. It's like, bring it to the open market.
That's right.
I'm an open market guy. I own business. You 100%. Own business. Let's create something that we know will hold them accountable, but also let's get people all rowing in the right direction. And I think even knowing what our energy policy is, right? Like, again, if you're thinking about becoming an elected official, being able to translate what our energy policy is and what we're actually doing, and all this stuff that we're paying for through Centerpoint, like, how is that actually going to make anything cheaper or better?
That's right.
You can't. It's just not happening. And I want to hit. I know we're at the end of our rope here as far as how long we're going to talk today, but we have to figure out a way to unite around that, and keep talking on Facebook. Keep sharing your bills. It's a place to complain a lot, and I sometimes get into the weeds. Like, I had a person come on and say, "Well, you're a gas guy, and we just need to get rid of fossil fuels because it's it's destroying the planet." And it's like,
the second there's a viable alternative to do that, let's do it.
Well, and you can say that, but they still come back and like, that's the only plan. That's the only thing that they can think about. And I know you can't change that in everybody, but I think we need like a core principles thing. Like, what's the end goal? We want to make energy cheaper. That's one of the top
There's a
ones.
realistic
We want it cleaner.
expectation
We
that
want
we
it,
have to create. You cannot get rid of fossil fuel. You can't have a piece of technology that you own that isn't based out of a fossil fuel product. It does not.
everything that's touching this table and around us.
Everything
is-
petroleum,
in the
pretty much,
world
yeah.
is petroleum based. In our
Get rid of your
entire
phone if you
right.
don't want.
Don't turn your air conditioning on. Get rid of your car. Get rid of your phone. Get rid of that.
It's a silly.
laptop.
It's a silly conversation, really.
Yeah, it's nonsense, and it's put together by an agenda that is not real. So these people are very passionate. I respect them. I love everything that they're
Love the planet, love the
Yes.
energy, love whatever. But
I
it's like
think the cleaner we can make the environment, the faster we can do it, the better for everybody.
100%.
However, we don't have the solution that will work yet. That's why we do things like have a space program, because that goal forces us to develop technology to meet the goal. So in the span of developing rockets, we built amazing technology solutions that we would have had any other way. In the span of these big, huge jumps in technology, we've had some horrible cataclysmic catastrophe or a war or something that has been the catalyst to create solutions. Right now, we're in an energy crisis that no one wants to get involved in, because it means that we have to become united, and the people that are trying to make the most money don't want that.
No.
And
That's what
this
most
is
people
this-
need to really truly understand. Is like, rather than coming to any of those forums and on Facebook or anywhere else and throwing shade on
Right,
somebody
right.
that doesn't agree with whatever. I mean, you have to agree on the things you at the core you agree on. And like you said, I'm with the people that think solar can be the answer, but you have to show me where it has been an answer anywhere, because you can't just like go off of a cliff, and that's
Right.
what they tried to do in California with the cars, and
It doesn't work.
It just
Doesn't work.
you can't go EV by 2035 because you don't have the infrastructure. You don't
Not
have
only do you
any
not
way
have
to burn.
infrastructure,
You
but
don't
the
have any
technology
of
doesn't
it.
work.
You don't have any of it. You got nothing. So you've been sold something that you've bought into. You're passionate about because it sounds good, but it just doesn't. There's nothing there. There's no there.
That's exactly it.
So-
there's no real solution. There's no equitable position that everyone can get bought into. And I think it's very important that we acknowledge that I think everyone in the political process has the best intentions in mind. I don't think
Most people.
anyone. Well, I think a lot of times they get bought into a thing and they get really, really emotionally invested in it. And I know that personally, this is why I surround myself with very strong voices in every room I'm in, because I want them to stop me from trying to predestine an outcome based on my emotional attachment to it. So, and that's why we have people saying, well, all these deflectionist statements, all these divisionist comments. That's the source of that. They're emotionally attached to a predestined outcome. They want our current
Some
mayor.
of them are just paid to be there.
Some of them are.
There's a
But
lot of
that's still-
there's a lot of astroturf and
they're
a lot
helping.
of a lot
they're
of,
helping
lot of
to
bots.
predestine that outcome, right?
Yeah.
They're helping to predestine.
AI is going to make that worse. I mean, that's
It will.
That's the
It
real. That's
100%
the real
will.
thing. It creates the noise. Like that's another whole
It
nother.
stirs the
conver-
pot. It stirs the pot. So,
Yeah.
do I think our current mayor has any nefarious intentions?
I don't
no,
think so.
100% no.
No.
She's a lovely woman. She has the best of intentions. She wants our community to thrive. She's
The people that like her love her.
right,
Yeah.
and you know what?
And I've never met her, so I don't know.
I have. She's a lovely woman.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. She is coming from a position that is not sustainable. You cannot keep adding. We have $1 million housing affordable trust fund. That's up from 500,000, which was the most it's ever been until her administration. We have 150% increase across random funding for buildings like a fire station, when we could have simply said, you know what, corporate citizens, I want to go to the Berry Plastics, the Bristols, the Shoe Carnival, the whomever, and say, let's get together and have a fund that you as corporate citizens help fund this new capital campaign for a new fire station. It is desperately needed. That's a real need. So go form partnerships with your local corporate citizens to get it funded. Stop relying on the citizens to do this necessarily. We have corporate citizens to help do that, and we're not doing a good job of it. That's where I get frustrated, when we're not creating advocacy, we're not thinking out of the box, we're not leveraging core business principles to do the simplest of things. When the government shows up and says, I'm here to help, one of my favorite Ronald Reagan quotes, that's when you need to get real concerned. You need to start panicking. I mean, that's 100% true.
100%. Factual. Travis, what I know we've got kind of not a hard out, but a fairly hard out that we need to get out. And I'm not saying we're wrapping up the conversation. All I'm going to say is, first of all, I appreciate your energy. I appreciate.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
We've tried to get it. We've tried to make it happen. You know, a while back. I think it makes sense to make it happen now. I'd love to do it again because I've got a whole inventory of things here that I think we could talk about, discover. Like the clips for me that you bring in from the outside. I'm sorry, I got some residual noise here. I'm just trying to get rid of, and I don't know if it's me or not. But that was it, wasn't it? Okay. I need to get a new computer.
Just the fans.
It's just this
cool.
it's this nonprofit podcast that I need funding for. I guess the point for me would be there's a lot of different things that I feel like you bring to the table from not just your energy, your intelligence, you have a deep understanding from the energy perspective, which I think we need. Like it's one of the core things we have going on that we have to solve because the governor of the state, whoever that's going to be in 3 to 6 years, is not going to change what we have here without somebody organizing, somebody doing something at a local level
And coming up with solutions to present.
coming up with solutions. And to my, I've looked around and I've waiting for people to stand up, and you're one of the people that consistently stands up. So first, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I know you're very busy. You're running multiple businesses and some part-time gigs also, so you must not sleep very much. But I just feel we have a leadership crisis. I wish I didn't. I mean, I really mean that, and not in any kind of derogatory way.
Right.
I don't want to say anything negative about the mayor except for my own personal experience with the mayor, which I haven't had any because it was shut down. That was a red flag for me very early, right? And I just, until that gets better, I don't know how you can have improvements without wanting to step outside of what you believe or what the people around you are telling you to believe. A lot of administrations fail because you have people in your ear giving you the wrong advice. Right. Or you've adopted something very early on that you thought was a good idea, but you come to find out it's not a great idea, and then you don't have the capacity to get out of it for whatever reason.
It's that predestined, emotionally intentioned outcome. My dad told me a long time ago, and for a long time I thought he actually came up with it. Later on, when I became more mature, I realized he borrowed it from someone. If you're the smartest person in the room, go find a new room to be in.
Yeah.
Henry Ford said that, I think, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah.
But you can't be in an echo chamber. If everyone's saying the same thing, all you are is in an echo chamber. There's no new ideas. There's no challenge to an idea. And that's exactly where we are. We have people saying she's doing wonderful things. Our city's never been better. Well, that's not at all true. That's not even remotely true. Our city is not in a great place. It can be. It's rare that I've seen so much potential sitting dormant. Ever. Not in a business, not in a person, and not in a place. That is both a wonderful thing because of all the opportunity that exists around it, but it's also one of the saddest things because we have a level of apathy in Evansville, Indiana around new things coming here or changes being made or improvements. They don't believe it anymore.
Yeah, we need a spark. I mean,
that's exactly it. We forgot our identity. We were in the wartime, in World War II, we were national leaders in innovation. We did amazing things. We accomplished amazing things. We helped legitimately win a world war through our innovation and our hard work and ethos. We've forgotten that DNA. It's still here.
Well, I think
we've forgotten it.
One of the topics that we're not going to have time to get into tonight is education and our curriculum, what we're doing locally. I mean, all the massive changes that not only are going to be forced upon us by AI that we're not really even talking about, all the things we've already should have changed.
Yeah.
Just to drive new small business owners or medium-sized business owners, or what are we really doing with manufacturing? How can we have real manufacturing if we don't have energy? It all comes kind of back. It kind of all funnels back into having the infrastructure needed to bring business in.
This is exactly why.
And the cost of living needs to be there for the employees of that business to live.
It all starts with energy. Energy and fuel. Our energy production and our fuel, that is the real currency that we all operate under. And until we get a consensus and can agree on that, in which we can't, we think that we have all these new creative ideas. There's nothing new under the sun. There's not a thing new under the sun. We need to agree that we're not in a place where we can adopt these new technologies that cost more to produce than they'll ever return on their investment, where the deficit to even make these things, to manufacture these items, is far, far more significant than just staying where we are till we accept the truth of that. And I'm fine with putting solar up. I'm
And the
fine with
stranglehold that other countries will have on us.
That's right. I'm fine with experimenting with new technology to test it, but we cannot adopt it as gospel truth because it will not serve the need. And time again, this is proven. We've seen it in Texas. We've seen it here. We've seen it in multiple other locations. It's just not ready for prime time yet. It's just not. That doesn't mean I don't support it. That doesn't mean I don't support innovation.
It's in the plan. It's in the plan.
Right.
It's just not here.
It's just not ready yet.
Yeah.
And this is the building block for the next phase. We're testing technology to see what sticks and what doesn't, so we get to the next thing. And people that are just so solidly stuck in this rut, they're just as crippling as not doing anything at all. They've got to accept there's new technologies coming. Hydrogen's a great solution. Nuclear technology is an amazing solution. There is an enormous opportunity.
I have.
Can't wait till we get into it.
I've probably done like 35 hours of research this week just on nuclear alone, preparing for this podcast that we've talked about zero of the nuclear. But I think, again, this is a foundational conversation. And all I'll say is I think we're really close to having a lot of exciting energy opportunities out there. There's been a few people interviewed on Sean Ryan, somewhere in the 211 to 219 podcast. If you can look up Sean Ryan podcast with, it's a nuclear guy. He basically has a nuclear company. I forget the name of it, but we're real close. It's the guy that's working with alongside Elon Musk to basically, Elon wants to have a colony on Mars, and you can't do solar on Mars. So we've got to create nuclear power off there, but that's going to make everything so much more efficient. You have to go with the most efficient thing that you can that can travel, and it can be self-sustaining and whatever. And I like just if you're just looking at it from and I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent. But if you're looking at just powering any plant, and you go from how much coal or any other kind of thing that it takes to power, like the amount of nuclear material that it takes to power something massive is so minute. And here's another thing most people probably don't understand. Nuclear submarines that we have that are self-powered, that never have to hit land, can be offshore for 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
And we've never had one explode.
They're very safe.
They're very safe. They're very clean, and they're self-sustaining. We should be really openly looking at that. And that's one of the things I'd like to have that conversation with you moving forward. Because as far as vision for where are we going as a community, we need less cost right now on Centerpoint, and we need our bills reduced however we can do that. But like, what's the long-term plan here, and what can we do in our little sphere to really make it happen? And I'm all for busting the monopoly. I'm all for, like, if we all have to march to the up north to get ourselves taken off whatever grid that we're forced into, we need to do it. I'm all in. Like, I feel like this.
I think that's a sentiment that a lot of people are feeling, honestly. I think also that figuring out that next energy solution, I think modular nuclear power is the answer. I think ultimately that's where we're going to land. It's very clean. It's very safe. I think nuclear has gotten a bad name for a lot of weird, unfortunate reasons. And I think there's
propaganda, Joe.
I think there's a narrative that it eliminates, if you can produce power for a fraction of what it's being charged for now, a small fraction, there's a lot of people who stand to lose a lot of money and a lot of revenue. That's not a very popular opinion.
You said something much more eloquently than I would have, because I would have made it much darker than that.
Well, I'm a business guy. I mean, I look at the
I know,
problem.
but like what you're saying is, there's a lot of people that make a lot of money off of us giving them $1,000 a month and energy, and that money
52 week high.
That money
Stocks,
just goes
52 week high.
That money just blows out of town.
Yeah,
it's like
Centerpoint's not even headquartered. They're in Houston. That
Yeah.
52 week high is what their stock said.
Yeah.
Well, we paid the highest bills we've ever paid in the history of Evansville. That's astonishing.
That's astonishing
and
to me.
unacceptable.
And I just, okay, so like, what are our takeaways from this conversation, and what do we want to do with it? Like, we need an action plan. We want to know something's coming next. We want to know what we can all do. I love all the sentiment online, all the energy, all the whatever. If the mayor can capture that, if if she would reach out to you and say, I like your plan, or I like parts of your plan, like it takes some, I'd like to decentralize everything.
Yeah.
But you do need some central
that's
energy building.
the central conduit. That's
Yeah.
the unifying conduit and the pulpit by which we could deliver a very powerful message. 100%. I think that if there's, for me, my takeaways are, and I mean this 100%, if the mayor or the mayor's office calls me and asks for any help around this, I will instantly respond in a positive way. I want them to succeed because I told them in our February meeting, I don't want this to be an election issue in the next cycle. I don't want to be talking about this. Let's just solve it and make it go away and help the people of Evansville. Let's just do that. Let's do that. I didn't put a social media post on about it. I didn't talk about the specifics of it. I'm still not talking about the specifics of it. I laid out my 5-point plan, made it public so that everyone could understand what was presented and how frustrated I was that it wasn't being implemented. And that's the extent of it. I don't care who solves it. I will help whomever's willing to get involved to do it. Now, that being said, I've taken some matters into my own hands. I've engaged with state level leadership and legislators to actually, and presenting them with some solutions and hearing what their thoughts are. And they've got some good ones too. And I will be the first one to be in line endorsing them and yelling from the rooftops with substantive change that can be made. I want this to happen for Evansville. I don't care who it is. Now, again, if city leadership comes and says, let's all get on the same train, let's go. Let's do it. I'm excited. If not, I'm still taking the train. And I'm still going to do everything I can in trying to help people here. I'm just a private citizen. Nothing that I have said is representation of any board, any group, any company, or any party I happen to be a part of. That has nothing to do with anything in my life. This is simply because I saw two people that voted for me from a different party who we came together, had wonderful conversations with, breaking sticks over their knees and putting them in the trunk of their car in a public park because they couldn't heat their house. That's it.
That's a problem.
That was horrible.
Stuck in your craw.
Well, it made me cry.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen very often. And it was horrifying that in Evansville, Indiana,
that's even a thing.
That's a thing that was happening.
Well, I for whatever it's worth, I don't know if I'm the best mouthpiece for this ongoing conversation, but I said it early that this issue doesn't get better unless there's ongoing conversations and rubber hitting the road. Like there needs to be, people that are frustrated. There's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of people that are just suffering. And so I think part of it is the community needs to know that there's not only people out there that are advocating for them and that want to do, talk about plans and put plans together and not just talk about it, but physically start doing something about it. And I think if you have that on the horizon and you know something's coming, it just makes you feel a little bit better. Like it's like when you own a business and you're like, if you worked for me and I said, well, I know Joe's really good at this. If I ask him to do this, he's going to go do it. And I can go now do something else and not be distracted by what's going on right here. That's what we want in our leadership. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunately not what the feeling that I'm getting from what's going on currently. And I hope that changes. I'm with you.
I would love it. I'd be I'd be a big cheerleader.
And I'm not saying she has to solve it in the next 2 years, but like there needs to be a path to solving it. Mm-hmm. And it can't be blaming, the Republican governor.
That's not the answer.
Or whatever. It's just not.
That's deflection.
It's just not doing. It's not doing it for me, and I don't think it's going to do for the rest of the voting community either.
Excuse cards and additional taxes are not going to make anyone happy with where we are.
No.
So, but I do want to also thank you guys for a platform to talk about this. I think that is incredibly important, and no one is doing it. I think hopefully that people are able to listen to this and get some hope around this. There are people that are working on it, and there are people that want. Like I said, I don't care who's the mayor. I don't care. If they were working on this, I'd be right there working side by side with them, doing everything I can to make it successful. And I don't really care what happened in the past. I was disengaged. I shouldn't have been. I take accountability for that. I'm moving on. I'm doing what I can now.
Well, I think you said all those words that, and most of us fit in that same box. We're all kind of in that same. So we could have done more. I feel like with the podcast, what I'm trying to do is bring air to people like you who have maybe not been on a podcast before, but also just It's an emotional thing for me because like the reason for starting this was never about money. You know, you own businesses, you do things, and you know, Travis. I used to pay him in bourbon. Now I can't afford bourbon, so I just he keeps showing up on Wednesdays for whatever reason,
like a stray dog or something.
But I mean, I really do believe he's here because of.
It's my belief. It's what I want to help accomplish.
Conversations
Absolutely,
like this that can start the
I
next
wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind some money. But
I know a little bit. I think my computer just blew up. I was making all that ruckus. I'm definitely going to have to go buy another computer just for the podcast. But anyway, I would welcome you back anytime if you want to. You can organize it and have another conversations. We can have a little bit more like. Okay, here's the next thing. Here's what we really want to talk about.
And we can, as soon as I have some updates, I'd be happy to come back on and give you guys the updates. I do hope that people listening get something out of this.
Well, you're welcome back anytime. I'll do my best to prepare and get better to pull information not only that you feel is important, but any feedback that we get from our new listeners or people that have listened. I mean, it's not about me being right or you being right or Travis getting bourbon next week and not this week.
A little bit about that.
Maybe a little bit. Maybe bring the bourbon in next time. But no, really it is about, you know, I want Evansville. It doesn't have to grow. I don't want to live in a big city. I could have done that. I want it to be a place that people want to be. I want it to be a place that's affordable. I want a place that my kids want to stay here potentially.
Right.
We own property in and around the town. I want it to be a place that it's where we're from. It's where we're going to be, and
proud to say that's where you're from.
And proud. But it is now. You got people like maybe I should move to Henderson because
that's right.
That's just sad. I mean that's depreciating my house.
Yeah,
it's depreciating everything around it. I mean it's just not a good course. No. So we need a new course, and I hopefully someone like you can bring the energy and kind of reinvigorate what's going on currently. If not, I will probably be advocating and campaigning for somebody else in the future, just because it's so important, and I don't think we're going somewhere with it. So I appreciate you so much, Joe. It's wonderful, Travis. As always, I'll give you a bourbon on the way out the door if you want.
No,
he's a police officer. I can't do it. It'll be in a sealed container. He only lives like 30 houses from here, so by the time he gets over the hill, it'll be fine.
I can walk, I guess.
I love it.
Thanks to anyone that's just came and listened for the first time. Follow us on Rumble, YouTube, or Spotify. If you like, subscribe, comment, all that helps with traction. We're growing in incremental. I think this one's going to probably get a big blast because I think we're going to have some good talking points to follow up on. And I appreciate you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome.
Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Love you all.